Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast, RPG Site's weekly podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres.
Holy, video games are so back.
Mikhail Mednani.
What a week.
Adam Vitale.
Is there anything to talk about?
James Galizio.
Nintendo Direct.
We could talk about Karen if we wanted.
I like how he doesn't script. Yep, James is here, and Joe is here. They're both here.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I said there's Nintendo Direct, and that counts.
I was
No,
joking.
He's
we'll
making
go
a
with it,
joke, Chow. I get a strangle you, Chow.
Yes. So when we signed off the last week of the last week's podcast, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about Nintendo Direct. We did not know, but yes, there was a partner Direct, and we will talk about that. You know, as always, there's a lot of news coming out of that is of importance to our site. But before that, we're going to open up with the big two releases for this week, and this has been teed up for a while. We're going to be talking about Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, and then we're going to kind of continue our discussion on the now released Nioh 3. We kind of preempted some of the Nioh 3 discussion last week with the pretty lengthy demo that was released, but obviously now the game's out and we've got a review up. We'll talk about that, and we can kind of go into more detail about Nioh 3. But without further ado, we'll start with Dragon Quest. And I know we've had a few people that have had opportunity to play it prior to release. Adam, of course, is going to spearhead that conversation. He covered the review for the site, also did a lot of guide work. I also assisted with that. And I know other people have either started playing it or have played it or have played a previous version as a point of reference. So that's going to be our main topic to start out. And then we'll go into Nioh and Nintendo Direct and everything else. So Adam, did we talk about earlier in the year when you went back to play the original version of Dragon Quest 7? I forget. I know you did that, but I forget if it came up on the podcast.
If we did, it was probably late last year.
Okay. Because you played that basically in preparation for this.
Yeah, I was doing my homework, basically. Because I had played the 3DS version when it came out, and that was the first version I played. And I liked it quite a bit, actually. But then when they announced Reimagined and talking about, like, one of the very first things they mentioned was streamlining it, I was like, I want to see the extremes. I want to see the original version, which I had not played at that point, and then I'll see what the newest version looks like. So now we have 3 different versions of Dragon Quest 7. They're all quite a bit different from each other, but Reimagined is, I think, clearly the most different. So I reviewed it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I do think it has still a lot of the, flavor and components that make Dragon Quest VII what it is. I think a lot of the values and qualities are still there. But as I say in my review, and this is basically the main thesis of the review, Dragon Quest Reimagined, on the tin, when they announced it, they said they were going to be streamlining it, and they meant it. They streamlined it a lot, just in terms of pure numbers. The original game is usually considered to be about 100 hours long. The 3DS version trims that down to about 80 hours. That's mostly due to some slight adjustments at the beginning, and the fact that there are no random battles in the 3DS version. Reimagined, you can beat it pretty comfortably under 50. Maybe edging over 50 when you include all of the post-game and lucky panel achievements and whatnot. That takes a little bit of time. But still, not a short game, but very well truncated compared to the other releases. Now, in my review, I criticize fairly strongly how a lot of the edges of the game have been sanded off. And in fact, I saw quite a few reviews with a similar take to mine, even using similar phrasing, sanded off. So not very unique stance on my part, but this is definitely something that's very evident if you played the original earlier versions of the game. And I'm not just talking about cut content. There is some cut content. Let me talk about that first. There are 3 islands that have been removed. I guess I should back up a bit. We've said this before, but just in case you're not familiar or listening for the first time, Dragon Quest VII's structure is a little bit different than most other RPGs. I'm not saying it's the only one that does this, but it's an RPG where most of the story is told through kind of separated, isolated kind of vignettes, like short stories. And these are the different islands that you go to, and they each have their own little story that takes place. Some of them do loosely and eventually tie into like a larger narrative that takes shape. But still, the core of the game is really this kind of string of short stories that you encounter throughout the game. So when we talk about it, when you think about it, discuss it, it's oftentimes in this framework. So a couple of these islands that were in earlier versions of the game have just been removed entirely. They're just not there anymore. And the whole reason for that is just to save time, which is a little bit like, I guess that makes sense. Like if that was your goal to shorten the length of the game, that is an approach to do it. But it is, I find it a little bit of a bummer. Like, for example, one of the islands that is removed is El Ciclo, which is kind of an island that has a very memorable kind of gimmick. It's basically Groundhog Day, where it's a time loop. And I remember in the earlier versions of the game, there's like you wake up and you're in the inn and you see a girl, kind of a clumsy girl, fall down the stairs. And this happens every morning. And things like that. And you're trying to figure out, why is time all messed up in this city? And there's kind of a fun gimmick, a fun dungeon for that island. But that island didn't really tie into the main story at all. And so it's just gone. And that's it. It's just not there. And I even put in my review, like, and what do you say about that? They just decided it's gone. And that's just it. It's not there. You have no choice in the matter.
Yeah, there's nothing more like nuanced than that. It's just like it was there and now it's not, and there's really nothing else to say other than it was removed for the sake of time. One comment I did want to make is I was reading some impressions on these reviews, and a lot of reviews were very positive, and a lot of reviews kind of took the same kind of general stance that you took. So it seems like what you stated wasn't really an outlier, I don't think, based on just like the consensus or whatever. But I did see some comments like, "Man, a lot of reviews are using terms like sanded down. Are they like why does that happen?" And I'm just like, "Well, I mean, we could there's no big great conspiracy. Like I could word it differently, but my opinion's going to be the same, or your opinion's going to be the same,
What, do they think
whether or
there's
not you use that
collusion or something? Jeez.
just like, man, it's kind of like one of those things like makes you think. People are all using the term sanded down. Like GameSpot did it, RPG Site did it, someone else. And I'm just like, well, okay, like that's one way to poetically describe what we're trying to get across. That's pretty much all it is.
Yeah, but so the thing is with Dragon Quest Reimagined, a lot of my issues with the changes it made are not really directly related to just they removed some stuff. It's kind of everything around it too has been made more guided, made easier to drink. It's made it just kind of less engaging to play, in my opinion, easier to get through, and easier to reach the end credits on, which again was the whole goal of this reimagined version. And there's not any one individual thing that's like, man, this one thing compromises the game. It's not that simple. There's just kind of a cumulative layering of all these different things now in the game that kind of, as they stack on top of each other, kind of over time, like death by a thousand cuts, to be trite. Like it just over time, it wore on me. There's so many different ways in which the game holds your hand a little bit more, or makes it a little bit easier to know where you're going, or kind of lowers the hurdle, makes it easier to get through. And let me just list off a few. For example, there's objective markers on the map. Other Dragon Quest games have had these, but you open up the map and it just tells you, go here. You can turn those off, but it only turns them off on the map. So if you're in like a town, like a new town, and it's telling you talk to this person or talk to this person, then it just tells you what to do. The party chat in the game will oftentimes, like, it pops up all the time, where one of the characters, basically a little icon shows up on the screen saying, hey, I want to say something. And I'd say like there's a coin flip chance that they're just going to give you a clue or a hint, like we should talk to this person or we should go to that place. And I actually started ignoring them partway through, because just like, you're just going to tell me something I already know or whatever. Even without the party chat, characters will kind of naturally chime in at parts in the story, kind of telling you what you should do. Like, for example, hey, we saw that at Dig Site. We should go to Dig Site now. And like, you don't even have to think about it or remember. It just tells you we should go there. And there's so many other components also. All the tablet fragments that you're looking for in the game, which is what allows you to go to these different islands, they're all just listed in the menu now. You just open it up and it tells you, go here and you will find one. Mini medals are also listed in the menu, which is kind of crazy to me that mini medals were always like these, things you seek out and you search for them and you find them, and it's like a little like present, a little reward. But now it just tells you, go here, go there, and there's literally a list of them in the menu telling you, here's where they are. Lucky Panel is a mini game that's in other versions of Dragon Quest VII, but now in this version, it's free to play. They try to get you to spend money on it, but you don't have to. It's a free to play, like in game, mini game, so it doesn't cost anything to do, and you get tons of free equipment and items that you can either use or sell. By the way, the game just throws so many healing items at you, like everywhere. So you always have plenty of medicines and files to raise your HP and MP. Speaking of that, there are no more personal inventories, so everyone has access to all items at all times. So you never need to manage who has what items or prepare for that. Just everyone can use strong medicines whenever you need to. Ruff's Nose for Treasure ability has been powered up. And unlike the HD2D games, it tells you where all the items are on the island. You just click a button and it lets you know how many items you need to pick up. In terms of just, you don't really need to seek them out. It just lets you know how many there are. As far as like dungeons go, there are sacred statues that heal you to full everywhere. Usually at the beginning of dungeons and end of dungeons, which in terms of like resource management makes it so it's a lot easier to, stay on top of your health and to make sure you always have MP to spend. And it's just kind of lightening up that resource management challenge quite significantly. You can learn 2 vocations at once, which greatly increases the rate at which you learn new skills and high-level skills. So you're going to have access to better skills much earlier on. And speaking of vocations, there are no more vocation limiters for gaining points. In the previous versions of Dragon Quest VII, if you were above a certain level in any given region, you wouldn't learn vocation skills anymore. Like you wouldn't get points. That was like a way to like gate it, so you couldn't just overpower your vocations on lesser enemies. That doesn't exist anymore. They got rid of that gate. Characters cannot die, so if they fall to 0 HP in battle and you clear the battle, you don't need to worry about reviving them anymore. They'll just be back up at 1 HP, and churches don't have the ability to revive anymore because they never will have to. Speaking of that, if a party wipe does occur and you lose a battle, in Dragon Quest classically, you lose half your money, which can be a pretty substantial penalty. But now it's 1,000 gold, which, especially in like the later half of the game, is like nothing. So losing, if you happen to mess around and get a party wipe, you basically lose nothing. There's the penalty of doing that is very, very, very minor. That's quite a few things I just mentioned, but just kind of like stacking all of these things together, I just kind of wore on me over time, and I was just kind of like, give me something to like, give me some friction, give me something that I need to like prepare for or surpass or something. It just felt like over time, this is just, the training wheels were never taken off.
That was the first thing I actually noticed when I was playing the demo, and I was like, I'm glad there are all these options, because so many of my friends who, when I told them to play Dragon Quest VIII on 3DS, they just like dropped it for whatever reason, and they like having these options, which is fine. I'm all for more options, but I feel like I've said this before on the podcast, I feel like Square Enix didn't go all the way. Like they decided to do so much, give you all these sliders for difficulty, make things more accessible, but then I don't understand why they didn't also go in the other direction. Because like I've seen jokes about this, that this is a Dragon Quest for fans and first timers or whatever. Like when people say you try and make everyone happy and you make no one happy, I feel like Square Enix was just so close to like actually managing that. If they had just let you disable some things like this, and like Adam mentioned this in his review also about the forced depth of field thing, and I feel like that's awful. And that was the first thing I modded out. Like I even modded it out when I had the review copy, because it's pretty easy to do with the demo mod. But these are just confusing things they left in the final game. And I feel like given the criticism, I hope they do it because like Square Enix is known to randomly patch one of their games like 6 months later with, oh, here are some quality of life features and new fixes you wanted, which we should have shipped a week later, but we took our sweet time. What do you all think about that? Like, do you think they'll actually address some of these things?
I think always could. I mean, they did it for, let's say, Dragon Quest 3 HD2D when people complained like, "Hey, why is the fucking what was it called, the creature that
Bubble
you
up.
ride across the world that is like slower than the original?" I
The
forget
Skybird thing. That's not its name,
Skybird.
but that thing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Skybird. Yeah. And they randomly fixed that up several months later to increase the speed of it because it was so slow when it first launched. I was like, what's happening here? So I mean, they can, but uh, overall, I think it's pretty much kind of my worst fears realized when they first revealed this game, and it's just like confirmation. It's like, yeah, they weren't really secret about what they were going to do to this game. When they first showed it, I kind of wish it was less, you know, less training wheels, as you called it, Adam. But as I read more impressions from people who played it and even have their kids play it, there's a certain sense that like this is a good almost beginner RPG. It feels like for a certain younger audience that like they wanted to get into RPGs, but they don't know where to really begin. And it seems like some people I know, have had their kids play this and they really enjoy it. And I think that it's a combination of both the visuals. It's very cartoonesque with the using the real life dolls as models, so it does give it a certain flavor of a certain almost children's cartoon aesthetic. Um, Plus, because there's so many systems that empower the player, where, for better or for worse, of course, in our age range and our experience, like more in the for worse range, um, it doesn't really penalize you or punish you for failing. It's like it there are everything about this game they've tuned so you can keep on going without fear of failure. Obviously, that doesn't jive with the way that I've my philosophy on like game design, and I'm usually for games, teaching you through almost trial and error, not necessarily always like dying and then repeating the run back and dying and repeating the run back, or grinding endlessly to get your numbers above, to progress something more comfortably. But there are certain things in game design that you can do to make it to make it feel like you're progressing, even though there's a challenging thing you're trying to overcome. And that doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, we're only gonna like slap you on the wrist if like you do a party wipe or something like that. So it's one of those things that's hard to, for me, for where I am with Dragon Quest VII, where I'm a big fan of the original, even said so as much when when Reimagined was first announced, where I prefer the original over the 3DS version, where I feel like that era in games has come and gone. And even the things like when Dragon Quest 3 HD2D remake came out, where much about that original game was all about the discoverability and that feeling of adventure of where to go, not really giving you like many on-screen visual markers on where to go next, or like you really had to pay attention to what people were saying to find out where to go next. That feeling of adventure back then really resonated with me as a kid growing up when I was playing games. While kids these days and your audiences and people, even who want to get through games easier because they don't have much time for games, you know, they do want to be held by the hand and know where to go, exactly where to go at all times, and not have that feeling of discoverability, because they don't want to, you know, this will sound harsher than I mean it to be, but they don't want to like learn the game through having to pay attention to the game. They just want, you know, always to know where to go next, not necessarily like pay attention to what people are saying line by line of like where to go next. They want to like just have the game tell it to them at all times on the screen, and that, un- for better or worse, resonates with modern audiences by and large, with how they engage with video games, and that's what the video game landscape is now. So I don't know. It's, for me, I just feel like I'm like an old man yelling at the clouds, like
I'm with
talking
you
about a
there.
bygone era.
Yeah, so Dragon Quest 3 and 1 and 2 HD 2D did make some like quality of life adjustments in terms of like objective markers and more money and more items and equipment in general. So like cynically you could argue that I'm being maybe hypocritical. Like, why didn't you talk about this for those games, but you are talking about it for Dragon Quest 7? But I do think Dragon Quest 7 kind of goes like one or two more steps beyond that, in terms of all the different ways in which it just lightens up the the load a little bit, the friction. So it just, in my experience, just talking about my personal tastes and philosophies, I do think it just went just a little bit too much. So, but I have seen people, like you said, Josh, kind of argue like, you know what, this would be a good like Dragon Quest introduced to my kid. Someone maybe who is learning the genre or learning the franchise and might be off put if they were to play like something like the original or something that maybe a little bit harsher and how it penalizes you or in terms of challenge or resource management or whatever. But I want to emphasize, though, I don't hate this game. I don't hate this version. I'm not saying it's a bad version. In fact, I even said in my review, I really like the style of Dragon Quest VII still. I think it comes through here. I do think there is actually a fair bit of challenge, like in the post game. If you're like an RPG veteran like us, and you're playing with like some of the harder difficulty modifiers for the battles, some of those post game battles are still genuinely challenging and like they require good preparation in battle, or preparation before battle in terms of your equipment and your affinities. It requires good tactics in battle to succeed against some of those bosses. So you can find it in the game. It's just that I just do think, some of the changes in how they streamlined it, they succeeded. They succeeded in their goal, but I do think it had a cost, and that cost was something that I criticized.
Does Dragon Quest VII Reimagined still retain the spirit of the narrative in terms of like you still feel like, hey, your parties are bystanders witnessing the stories of the locations through like they're not directly involved with it. They're not like trying to cut their way into the narrative. It's like, oh, this is the story of how this location as residents, what the situation is going on.
Yeah,
here.
I do think so. In fact, I actually saw some other reviews. I'm not sure if they were first time like players or not. Kind of mentioned things like, your party is kind of boring. Like they don't do a whole lot. They don't say a whole lot. I mean, they have their party chats and whatnot, but your party in this game, I've seen some people say they're boring, and like I don't necessarily disagree, but I also think that's where Dragon Quest VII is just a little bit of a different framing than most other RPGs, especially Japanese RPGs, is in that, like I said in my 3DS review, which was 10 years ago, the game is not really about your party, which is pretty different than most RPGs, especially Japanese RPGs. Your party is more like observance. And they do chime in here and there, of course, and they do have like for example, Ruff, one of your earlier party members, does have like a story behind him and how why he's even a wolf boy to begin with and how he joins your party and whatnot. But like for the rest of the game, none of the story is about him at all. He just kind of comments on other things that are happening. And same with most other characters that you meet. They have their like, a bit of an introduction, like Aisha, who is a roamer, who shows up not quite halfway through the game. But once she like joins your party, she's almost like joins the peanut gallery in that she just kind of comments on everything else that they're seeing. And I do think that is maintained. And I think it's kind of an interesting perspective, but some people may not, may want their games to be more about the characters that they're playing as. So I do think that does come through.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a certain flavor of storytelling that like it really depends on like if you've been exposed to it previously or not. Like I remember like one of the most influential things that I've read and also watched growing up that really made me like this type of storytelling. If people know it here, it's a manga or a light novel actually that had like it got adapted to an anime like once or twice called Kino's Journey, and it's a really really fascinating work where your main character Kino is traveling throughout the whole like country along with a talking motorcycle Hermes. And the whole narrative structure of Kino's journey is she basically stays in every city, town, locale she visits when she's traveling around for 3 days. After 3 days, she leaves and goes on to the next location. And you meet a lot of different characters along this journey. And along with that, since it's such a you're visiting different locations very often, you see different cultures, different practices, different ideologies, different conflicts from multiple perspectives happening every so often throughout this whole entire work. And that's what I associate Dragon Quest VII with. Is it's probably the closest RPG that comes to that feeling of Kino's journey, where you feel like a traveler going from place to place to place, as more like an observer, a spectator of seeing why are things the way they are at this location. You're not there to necessarily fix stuff. You're just not necessarily there to save these people. You are there to gain an understanding, a knowledge, develop like a better understanding of the world around you and what lessons you can take away from that. So that's how I see it in terms of that regard. Where I don't really necessarily see that main party in Dragon Quest VII as like boring characters. I see them more as like vessels in which to perceive the world that they're trying to tell in the work.
So when I talked about when I reviewed the 3DS version, one of the towns that I talked about as a memorable one to me was Green Thumb Gardens, which is kind of like this kind of complex love triangle, or more like a love square of things that are going on in this town between different people, different statuses. And then in this version, I highlighted another town that kind of stuck with me, which is Volgograd, which, not to spoil it or anything, basically like the townspeople perform unknowingly heinous acts on one of their own members of their community. And it kind of ends in a bittersweet, somber manner. And it just, it's one of those sorts of stories that I think fits the vignette short story style storytelling pretty well. Like, I'm not sure if this would fit in a larger narrative or whatever, but I do think it fits here and it sticks with you. But yeah, so like, I'm not sure if there's anything else that I need to touch on. The combat system, the visuals, I am a little bit mixed on the visuals, just a little bit. I really like how the visuals look in battle. Like, I really don't have any criticisms there. It's definitely very different from classic Dragon Quest battles or what you saw in the HD2D remakes, where you get fully fledged character models in that they call that handcrafted style with the classic Dragon Quest enemies and whatnot. And I do think a lot of the environments look pretty good in the game. There are moments, though, where the game does feel just a little bit cheap to me. And the reason why I say that, and I know that might be a little bit harsh, is there's a lot of cutscenes in the game that go from like the classic Dragon Quest perspective, where it's like top down, isometric in a way. Only they're not sprites anymore. They're these models, and you're talking to the different NPCs, and they kind of have these like canned animations. And there's oftentimes actually a lot of these scenes don't have voice acting. There is voice acting in this version of the game, but there's a lot of these scenes, even like sometimes story important scenes in these different towns, where there's not. And it just kind of feels like, well, if we're going to do this top-down camera and we're not going to have voice acting and we're going to have like these kind of really simple animations, I kind of find myself wishing they were just sprites still, rather than like 3D models, like kind of just doing like very basic animations, and there's like no voices and there's no cinematography or anything. It's, again, this is just a minor criticism. It's fine. This isn't like a deal breaker, but I just kind of, wasn't something that I was like, yeah, this is excellent. It's like,
you wish it was utilized a bit more interesting because they had such a great art style foundation to work off of.
This is going to be really, really, really harsh, and this is going to be a bad comparison, but I'm going to make it. There were times where it reminded me of the Secret of Mana remake. Where it was like you took the sprites and you replaced them with models, but they're just kind of like doing very basic animations, and there's no voice acting or little voice acting in places, not throughout the whole thing, but just in places. It did remind me of that. So go for it.
I
Miguel.
winced a little.
Did you notice how they have this option to like get a closer camera perspective, because the default is quite zoomed out, but they made it so that, like, at least according to me, some scenes I felt like were better with the zoomed out camera, and some, like maybe in towns, I felt were better when it's closer. But it's so difficult to actually change it. You have to like go into the settings, change a tab, and do it every time. This is another thing which I'm surprised they didn't just like, put it on, like press into the analog stick or something to like swap on the go. So this is just like another small nitpick I have for the visuals, like the depth of field and this. And I've made it pretty evident that I absolutely dislike two of the character designs, and I would probably like mod those out. But yeah, like in fact, I bought a physical copy of the game because I buy everything Dragon Quest, and I'm happy that it has like reverse art, which features the PS1 and 3DS covers inside. So I immediately swapped it because the default and the key art is kind of dog shit according to me. So,
You're reminding me
yeah.
because it's very funny. Like the Dragon Quest 7 mods for this PC mods for this already are fucking wild.
Yep.
Like I saw someone replace the character models with Digimon, so your main party is like Agumon, Gabumon, and like Gyomon against like one of the bosses was modded out to be a Skull Greymon. I'm like, okay, that's pretty fucking awesome. These modders are crazy.
Turn Kiefer into Squall.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
No, Kiefer is sacred. Don't touch him. He has the best look of the whole game.
So I have a few comments, like not just complimentary ones, because I played this game alongside Adam ahead of release with the perspective that I have not played the previous game. So, like, do you notice anything's missing if you didn't play the original games? And the answer is kind of like no, but like in terms of do I have any inkling that there were previous islands other than being told that there were that are no longer in the game? Of course not. I don't. Like I don't miss them because I'm not familiar with them. But like most of the other criticisms, and again, they're just like, this is still a good game. Like I'm glad I played it. This is not a bad game. It's like I like it less than the HD 2D remakes, but I like it a lot more than a heck of a lot of other RPGs from, all over the place that I've played. But in terms of like wanting to have some obstacles to overcome, in terms of kind of the how quickly you just kind of breeze through everything, like a lot of that is evident, like regardless of whether you knew like what it was like before or not. And I remember like one of the very specific examples that I had was in Dragon Quest games. I hope I get the term right. Thwack or whack, the chance to instantly KO a party member is kind of like one of those things that you just got to be able to deal with. Like it's gonna some monster's gonna cast it. It has like a very low percent chance of hitting your characters, but it's gonna hit, and it's gonna be a problem. Um, then it hit a party member, and then it's like one of the diamonds that you picked up broke. It's like a sacrificial doll or whatever, where it breaks instead of your character. And I'm like, wait a minute, I never equipped that. Oh wait, it's just a global item bag now, so I never needed to. So now I don't have to worry about thwack because I pick up diamonds along the way, or you can buy them. So that's like a specific area where, like, I guess I know that because I played previous Dragon Quest games. But it's weird that something that is a pain in the butt that you normally have to just kind of deal with is no longer there. At least if you have diamonds of any sort, which you can eventually just buy.
You get
So that
plenty
was
of them.
You get plenty of them. So it's like, oh, now it's almost like if an enemy wastes a turn casting thwack, I'm just like, oh, I don't even need to think about this anymore. And then of course, like the reviving after battle or healing after level up, or healing at like the
Sacred
statues.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because people are like, well, a lot of other games do similar things. Like, isn't that like what's wrong with Dragon Quest doing it? I'm trying to like preempt like made up arguments in my head. Like, okay, where do I sit on this? And I kind of like, well, if there were like more, you can toggle. Like, there's not. We talk about the lack of options, the lack of accessibility options. Like, there are options for like I think it's low, medium, high, basically for battle difficulty. Like there are some, like you do have a little bit of play in terms of like I want the battles to be slightly harder, but I just wish there were more. I wish it's like, okay, don't revive me. I wish there was a toggle revive after battle. No, like make me like crawl all the way to a church to revive if I happen to lose someone. Uh, And people could ask, like, well, if you're just going to go to church, like, like it kind of goes back to like that permadeath and a tactical RPG thing. It's like, well, I'm going to play the game differently if there's that risk that I'm going to be punished for playing poorly or not preparing or not having my items ready or being risky or all those things. But you don't have to worry about any of that. It's just like, don't worry. Don't worry about it. Kind of ends up being like what I felt like going through this game. Like, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. You're not gonna be punished. You're not gonna be set back. You're not gonna have to overcome anything. You're just gonna enjoy the game. It just seems like, and there are parts of the game I did enjoy, but just not having any sort of tension did, I think, take away just a little bit, like a little bit of those intangible things, like when you overcome a boss or a challenge, or you make it through a tough dungeon, or you stocked enough materials to get through to the end of the day. You just don't have to work. Just don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And that's kind of like what it felt like playing through this. Even as a newcomer, I do think it was pretty apparent.
I'm also reminded, like, before release, they mentioned, like, in place of cutting out, the islands that didn't come over in Reimagined, they said that they introduced new content to Reimagined to sort of make up for it. Like, they added new elements to Reimagined that weren't in the previous versions of Dragon Quest VII. And I know you touched upon it a bit in your review, Adam, of what they added, and it feels like what they added doesn't really feel like it's made up for what was lost in the process.
Yeah, so I have a couple of comments on this. So, in terms of new content, it's less than an hour total. And some of it I probably can't mention in terms of like spoiler reasons and like also embargo reasons. I know the game is out now, but just to be fair to them and anyone playing the game. But one of the new bits of content, which they did advertise ahead of release, involves Maribel. Now, it takes about 10 minutes total, so it's very short relatively. And basically what it is, if you play Dragon Quest VII, either on PlayStation 1 or 3DS, you know that halfway through the game, Maribel leaves your party. Not permanently, you can kind of like swap her back in at trading her out for another character. You can do that in both the PS1 and the 3DS version, but she leaves your party for like an extended period of time. Basically, in this version, they're like, actually, she just gets to stay with you. And there's like a 10-minute little like guided cutscene sequence where they kind of just justify that. And that's it. That's all it's for. It's just to make it so she can stick with you. So that's it. And it's a kind of a nice Maribel moment, like in a vacuum. But that's about all it is. The second bit of new content is what they teased in a trailer with like adult Kiefer. And this is later in the game. And this is like another mini island. It takes about half an hour. I timed Brian when he was playing it, so I know it takes about half an hour to complete. It's got like a little town. There's a mini dungeon that you play through there, and also guess what? There is a stealth section. Someone at Square Enix decided, you know what Dragon Quest VII needs? It has all this stuff, but you know what it needs? A stealth section. So it added one. It's not a very big one, but I'm not lying. They added a stealth section.
It was really engaging and thrilling, and you had the time of your life.
And then and there's parts of this I cannot spoil, but like it basically revisits Kiefer. He does not join again as a playable party member, but it does revisit Kiefer in this section. Because
I do have one comment on this.
Just really quick. Basically, for people who don't know, Kiefer historically in the earlier versions of the game, pretty early on too, he leaves the party and never comes back. But in this version, he does. Or you see him again anyway.
So having played through the game with the additions, I don't think they're obtrusive. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, this is obviously something they added that's just for a bit of fan service. Just like the general kind of fan service. Just like, wouldn't you like to see Kiefer again? Like, to me, it felt fine. Like, I actually felt like it bookended the game pretty well to kind of see him again. But it is like, it's not that substantial. It's not groundbreaking, and it's fine. That's all it is. It's fine. Like, I had no issues with it.
Also, in terms of like streamlining, I know I talked about cut content in terms of like total islands removed, and I know I talked about all the different like quality of life stuff that hastens the tempo of the game. But there are a couple of other streamlining in like the scenarios that do remain in the game. Some of them to me seem sensible, and some of them are again just kind of like caught me off guard. So here's one that I was actually looking here's one that I was actually hoping to find, and they actually did make it in the Faraday scenario. Faraday is the one with the automatons, the robots. In earlier versions of Dragon Quest VII, after you complete the scenario, you have to talk to one of the NPCs. Her name is, I think, Bobby in this version. She's Ambrose's granddaughter. She's an NPC. Again, this game is all about NPCs. And you have to talk to her after the scenario to get a fragment. And this is one of those things that is very easily missed if you're not looking for it, because you complete the scenario, and in early versions of the game, you're like, well, time to go on to the next island, but you need to go back and talk to her to get this fragment. Now, in the 3DS version, that version does have a hint system that will eventually point you back to her, like, hey, there's a fragment in that town, you should go look again. But in this version, she just gives it to you as like an unmissable cutscene as part of the scenario. She's like, hey, here's a fragment, you can take it. And that's just like, okay, that makes sense. That's a sensible adjustment where it's not punishing you for like talking to an NPC kind of randomly without solicitation or whatever. However, there are a couple of other cuts that are kind of like, I've seen some people kind of bummed about. The woodcutter who can talk to animals is no longer there. He was part of the...
What is this? I have no idea what you're talking about.
This is part of the this is part of the Larka scenario, or I should say the Orf scenario in the PS1 version. That's the scenario where you get rough. In the earlier versions of the game, you're like, why are all these animals here? What's going on? And the humans can't speak either. What do we do? If only we could talk to animals. And then you go back to the woodcutter who was found earlier in the game, because he can speak to animals because he practiced not magic. He can just speak to animals. And then like you bring him along, and that's how you like go through the scenario. They just kind of cut that part out. Which again is like, was that necessary? Like, no, but I have actually seen some people like lamenting, like the woodcutter, they killed him. He doesn't exist anymore. Also, the Hardly Pool scenario. This is the one that caught me off guard. So in the Hardly Pool scenario, you go through the tower dungeon, which is called High and Dry Tower, which is one of those puns that I think is great. High and Dry Tower. And then you're like on this like flooded part of the map, and you go into the Sunken Temple. Now, in earlier versions of the game, this is a dungeon. It's like the underwater city dungeon. And it's just a full-fledged dungeon. You know, there's enemies, there's puzzles, there's items to pick up and whatnot. And that dungeon is gone. When you go to that part of the map in Reimagined, it takes you straight to the boss fight, which is Grakos, how do you pronounce it? Who's a pretty important boss in Dragon Quest VII, like one of the more memorable ones. But yeah, they just cut out a dungeon. Like they just decided we don't need it. It's gone. And that's certainly, yeah, that'll hasten the pace of the game if you just cut out dungeons. But yeah, it's not there.
That's one actually that I did kind of feel as like, oh, that's weird. You just come here and fight a guy.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know a dungeon was missing, but it does. That one does actually feel like there was something here, wasn't there? Yeah.
So there's other adjustments throughout, even in the scenarios that still do exist. But yeah, again, I don't want to sound too negative. Like, this isn't my preferred version of the game. I actually kind of appreciate the take that our friend Sean Musgrave took in his review at Nintendo Insider. He actually kind of separated, like, almost like his heart and his mind, in a sense where it's like, if I were to replay Dragon Quest VII now, I would probably not pick Reimagined. I would probably pick an earlier version because it speaks to me more. But if I were to, I'm speaking for Sean here, if I were to recommend one to like a newcomer or to someone who's like, what's this Dragon Quest stuff all about? I might recommend Reimagined just because it's easier to swallow. And like, I can't argue with that. I think that's probably a fair assessment to make. Whereas like, this isn't my preference, but it is the one I might recommend. And I think that's kind of where it sits. You know, it's different enough from the other versions. I think that's a sensible, you know, way to look at it.
Is this what is it? I remember one person said that this is the Dragon Quest VII made for Dragon Quest VII haters.
Yeah, there is an argument, maybe a more harsh argument to be made that like this game feels like an overcorrection, where like Dragon Quest VII is too meandering, or it's so unguided that you have no idea what you're even supposed to do, that you just stumble across it until you eventually get to the end, where this game just kind of like overcorrects that in every way, where you can't possibly get lost or be confused. And so some people might argue that in original design was intentional, that, you know, it was meant to be guided by wanderlust versus holding a holding hand, and now it's like, well, if you didn't like that, this is the game for you. So again, that's a way to look at it that I think has some merit. But that's the kind of the position that Reimagine is in, is that depending on personal preferences and depending on also just your kind of like philosophy of how an RPG should be structured or not, you may come away more or less positive on this version compared to previous versions. So I'm not saying that my opinion is the correct one and everyone else just doesn't see it. It's just like, no, I'm only just speaking for myself. And other people had similar arguments. So this isn't, I don't think this is, I don't think this is something that's just like me being a wackadoodle. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
what does Adam think? Why does Adam think this? Because just people like
Stop being old, Adam.
So yeah, Scott White is a friend of ours. He actually wrote the IGN review. He gave it the same score and basically with the same criticisms I did. And he comes from a similar place in terms of having played the original version, and this coming to this one and being like not so plussed with all the changes. By the way, that was his first review byline at IGN. Great job, Scott. And then also a friend of mine, or more of an acquaintance, George Yang, reviewed it for Game Informer and had, I think, a 7.5 out of 10 with, again, similar takeaways. So it's just kind of like, there's a certain set of people that it's going to maybe rub them the wrong way may not be a great way to put it, but just kind of like, a little bit more conflicted with how the game was, the philosophy they had towards remaking this game for a second time.
I'm very curious how this is shaking out over in Japan, like general Japanese audience reception to it, because obviously Japan is very, 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 very precious with Dragon Quest anything. Obviously, Dragon Quest is the most popular over in Japan, and it's nowhere near as popular anywhere else than in Japan for obvious cultural reasons and how the gaming landscape has developed over the years. Over there, so I'm very curious to see how the audience over there perceives Reimagined. I wonder if they're liking it or disliking it overall, and I wonder if they could get away of doing a reimagined version of any other Dragon Quest aside from 7. Like if they did this with like Dragon Quest 5, I think there'd be like riots over there if I were. Because I get it. I mean, I'm a big Dragon Quest V person, so I would be joining them in the riots. But if they did a reimagined version of that, but I'm curious. I'm curious because I know they're usually not so hot on like changing Dragon Quest drastically, from my understanding.
I do think 7 is more unique, like to begin with, that it allows it to be reimagined in this way, where I think 5 is more traditional. It's like, what would you even do to it to reimagine it? I don't know.
If you cut anything of 5, I know them. I know adding them. I know they the added stuff in the 3DS version was already like, or was it DS or 3DS?
DS.
It's DS.
Yeah.
Chow, who's your favorite wife?
Yeah. Bianca. Sorry, I'm a Bianca
childhood friend
supporter.
I know some people who actually do think Deborah is a well done character, even though she's like an Atlas new girl.
Screwed over in the game. The dad also like gives you nothing. I remember.
Here's Chow thinking about the actual tangible rewards.
The gameplay,
like,
yeah,
which
exactly.
Depending who I marry, what do I get?
Well, you also get screwed over marrying Bianca too, because if you don't marry, was it
Nira?
Flora? Was that? Yeah, they have different names because it looked like they should
keep
changing it, right? But yeah, if you marry Flora, your in-law basically gives you all these like gifts and all this stuff. But if you marry Bianca or Deborah, you get like nothing, if I remember. So at least that's why I remember.
This marriage is a ripoff.
That's so funny to get. Imagine someone taking that line out of context. Get what these people are saying over here.
So of course you can read Adam's written thoughts on Dragon Quest VII Reimagined up on the site, rpgsite.net. We have a lot of other features on the site. I contributed to a walkthrough. Adam was the primary, and then myself and Junior went through to kind of make sure, QC it, quality check it. So if you followed any of the walkthroughs for like the Dragon Quest HD 2D games on the site, or the like Final Fantasy 1 through 6, or a few others, Lunar, another one that Chow worked on, this is kind of the minimalist bullet point here to their walkthrough. those are on the site. Mikhail, you did your performance review for Reimagined as well. We kind of talked a little bit about visuals and performance. I don't know if you had any other major takeaways on this game.
Yeah, I can quickly say that when the demo released, both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 to a lesser degree had this weird hitching thing which happens like every few seconds. So the game is really well optimized, I'd say, on both, like on everything, to be honest. It feels like a game made for Switch and then scaled up. The final game, unfortunately, has the same frame pacing issues as the Switch demo. So if you're playing the demo, you're getting a very similar experience to that. So keep that in mind. And because there was a demo, I kind of like, I get a bit annoyed doing these comparisons when there's a demo, because usually it's like I feel like I'm wasting my time in a way, but also I could do a bit more for this one because I tried the DQ7R fix mod, which has now been updated for the full game. And if you are playing on PC, I recommend looking into that mod because it not only lets you disable the ugly depth of field, you can also get ultra-wide support and do a whole lot more. Like y'all must have noticed that the shadows kind of pop in very close to you even on PC at the max settings, like based on how you move the camera and stuff. So you can like play around with all of that. I just recommend if you're playing on PC, use that. And yeah, if you're curious about like the best portable version, like read my feature because I cover what like would be best for you. Instead of just covering every platform, I focused on portables for this one because I think the art style, it kind of like lent itself more to portable play for me. So I thought that was an interesting angle. So yeah, give that a read.
I will say that playing through Dragon Quest, like it's Unreal Engine. I don't remember if it's 4 or 5. I thought it was 5. Then I think I saw something that said it's a version of Unreal Engine, and I was getting like those hitches like every I don't know 15 seconds or so. And whenever I get those, I'm like, do I have something running in the background of my computer? Like, is this my fault? Like, what am I doing wrong? Because I always feel bad. Like, I don't want to blame the game and then have egg on my face, realize I was running some service in the background that was messing it up. But now I'm playing Trails Beyond the Horizon, and it's running like butter. I'm like, oh nope, it's just Dragon Quest running on Unreal Engine, hitching every 15 seconds. It just,
I mean, for what it's worth, like Trails Beyond the Horizon is like the best PC porting house in the world right now compared to Dragon Quest. But yeah, I get your point. Like, I will say that I didn't run into those hitching issues, at least on both the handhelds I played on. But I did, like, a friend of mine was also telling me, like, and he has like nearly a James level PC. So it's definitely like something with the game, which hopefully they fix. So yeah.
A James level PC.
Yeah, you either get Cullen or you get James when you play a game.
That's a spectrum.
Oh my God.
those are the bookends.
Damn, are you really sure that Colin uses a potato?
He doesn't have a potato though. He actually has a pretty strong PC. I think it's like a 5800X3D and a 3080.
It's just that because he usually likes playing games on like Switch 1 and also it's like kind of like an in-joke now. Or it's like a running joke, I should say, but yeah.
Yeah,
Cullen strays again.
I thought you use an actual potato.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else related to Dragon Quest. I think that kind of covers it. So we have a few. We have the main guide on the site. We also have a few things talking about Lucky Panel. I guess Lucky Panel is the other thing that to me felt out of place, even not playing the game. Like, wait, I can just get all these items for free just by doing a mini game? Like, yeah, you can do it. And like some of the best items in the game. I'm like, why would they do this? Like the balance is just out the window. It felt like. Anyways. With that, we'll go into our second game topic for this week. Another game that basically released at the same time, Nioh 3. So Nioh 3, obviously, we talked about a little bit. We kind of teed it up last week with the demo. Of course, now we're going to talk about the full release here. I know that many of us have been playing it, some just with the release, some had a little bit of early access or started with the demo. Primarily Adam and Josh. I forget if others like Mikhail have been playing it. I have not gotten to it yet because, like I said, I'm playing through.
I've been playing it.
Oh, and then James as well. Okay.
I've been playing it as well for some guides.
All right, everyone but me, and maybe Chow. So, all right, I'll start.
I have horror stories. Sorry, I was like, I have horror stories of Nioh 1 with all the exact days of new builds. So
I think it's worth mentioning. Our review for Nioh 3 was done by Kite Stenbuck, and he usually doesn't write reviews, but we felt Adam and I felt he did like a really great job with the review of Nioh 3 because he brings a really unique perspective to the series as a whole, because he really gets into the almost to the weeds of like the story aspect of the Nioh games, which are like they provide a solid foundation for the series, but something that doesn't really get touched upon as much, especially in like Western perspectives. And he has like a really like great understanding of Japanese history, and was able to expand upon that in his review to a great deal, which was like pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, so he gives a good
And he's been
outline of
doing
like
translation work.
Yeah, he's been with our site for 9 years, and this is his first review. So, first scored review. He's done like
Yeah.
impressions and stuff before. But yeah, he gives a good like kind of like almost history lesson to like here's what happened in history and here's what the premise of the game is that's based on that. But there's also kind of an amusing part of his review. One of his more critical components of his review was just like he thought he would get to see like more battles or more characters in the game that are actually there considering you're like jumping through time. And it's just kind of amusing to me to hear him like say like this general and this lieutenant from history should have been in the game somewhere, but they weren't.
I love it.
So-
Yeah, and it's a really fantastic review that I highly encourage people to read, because I know
I
know many
I
people.
get it. I get it
Go.
because it's like I keep seeing people say, "Oh, the Neo game stories are bad," and it's like I don't know what to say. I've actually really enjoyed Neo 2's story. I think that's
Yeah.
a good story.
I know many people are there for the gameplay, and a good chunk just skip the cutscenes and like, hey, I just want to get back to the action. That's a totally valid way to play through the games too. Like, I get it.
He also did a guide for like if you wanted to experience all the events referenced in the 3 Neo games in chronological order, this is what you'd have to do. And it's like one of those things that I don't think I or very few people would actually ever follow. But it's like let me see. It's like start with Neo 2 until you get to the Battle of Anagawa, then go to Neo 3 during the Warring States, then continue Neo 2, then play Neo 1, then finish Neo 2, then Neo 3. And it's just like
That-
clear, like, yeah.
It's so sick. It's so sick. Who would do this? Kite would. Hell yeah.
Kite would, yes.
It's just even if no very few people would practically do this, it's just kind of fun to see like what the order
I
would
totally
be.
agree.
So
So we'll start with Josh to talk about your impressions of Neo 3. And of course, Adam and Mikhail and James can chime in as we go.
Yeah, we talked about this extensively last podcast with the demo. I haven't like gotten too far into it yet because I've been working on other stuff. But
Oh yeah.
I will say, like, I tried out the co-op for the first time in the O3 last night. Played several hours with friends. They're already ahead of me from where I'm at, so I'm just like, hey, catch you up a little bit, help me clear out these regions, And the way that co-op is done now with this like open field, open zone, open world structure,
It's
whatever
so
you want to call
nice.
it.
It's so nice.
Yeah, so it's a little bit weird at first with like the in-game terminology, because all I wanted to do is like, hey, come into my game and help me clear out like some of the open world activity stuff, like exploring, because it's kind of interesting where, because they've already explored these zones, when they join into my zone, you have to go through like the co-op menu and choose this expeditions option, and you can either do like you can host a private room through code or through friends. I didn't know there's like a separate friends option, so I just used a code, and then you just have to type in a code on their end, and then they'll search up all the rooms that have that same code. You do need like 6 numbers for the code, so usually some games do like 4 numbers, and then we just have like a standard 4 numbers here and there. But I was like, oh, okay, what am I going to use for my code? So of course, I didn't know what to actually use for my numerical 6-digit code, so I just put I don't know 676767, and I was like, just do that. And like, of course, when they search that up, it's like there's already a bunch of rooms with that code, but they found mine. Where it's like there's already a whole shitload of rooms with that code, stupidly, of course.
Yeah.
And when people join up to you and you start hosting like this private session for the open world stuff, there's like an assist gauge that pops up in the upper left corner, and that assist gauge is basically when people fall down or die in like in your instance. It takes off a little bit of the assist gauge. If you revive them, it only take off a little, but if they fully die, it'll take off a good chunk of it. And when that assist gauge fully depletes, that just means that like you lose all like this kill streak bonus Amrita stuff that you gain. But you obviously could just choose like, hey, continue with that session, and it'll keep everyone still in there. It just resets that like bonus Amrita kill streak bonus gauge. It just basically gives you passive bonuses on like drop stuff in that session. There's no like disconnecting because the assist gauge was like depleted or some stuff like that. It's still all connected, which is like it's a whatever penalty at that point, which is fine, you know. And it's just it works as intended. You know, you guys are all exploring. They cannot fast travel themselves. You only the host can fast travel. When if they drift too far off and you interact with the shrine, everyone gets teleported back to that shrine. So everyone's still relatively like in proximity with one another. When there's like you're talking to like a story or quest NPC, you know, people will get teleported back to you when you're talking to them. It all works as you want it to, as intended. They can even like interact with environmental stuff, like opening shortcuts.
Yeah,
That
it's really nice. It feels like if you've played the Elden Ring seamless co-op mod, it feels very similar to that, which is good.
yes.
It's how you want it to work.
Exactly. Like they really nailed the co-op integration. Obviously, there's still like the instance like mission stuff. Like, hey, there's like some co-op missions that you can do together. That's more, you know, guided content, not just open world stuff, like more linear content. That's still an option too. And it like I I really I mean we talked about this before, but I just really feel bad for Code Vein 2 in this respect because like I
They
like the
should have
big
delayed
curse
it
with
6 months. They should have
yeah
delayed it 6 months.
the big curse with Code Vein 2 is not only because it released in like a technically rough state that they've now released, you know, a social media post saying, "Oh, we're gonna work on optimizations for this to make this run better," but because Code Vein 2 stripped out the multiplayer, now it released so close to Nioh 3, and Nioh 3 is like, even though we've got this open zone, open world structure, we still didn't sacrifice multiplayer for it, and the way that we integrated multiplayer is the ideal way that you'd want it to be. It's very hassle free, stress free. Everything just kind of works as intended. While Code Vein 2 is like, well, we know people like the co-op multiplayer in the first game, but we've stripped it out of this game, and it's now fully single player. It's like, okay, that doesn't feel good for the people who like the co-op multiplayer. There, my friends really did like the Code Vein 1 multiplayer, and that didn't, you know, they were less enthusiastic about Code Vein 2 when they learned about that. So, but here comes Neo 3, like we're fucking having the time of our lives, and yeah, co-op is very, you know, it works. It's just how you want it to be. I think the one thing against is I don't think it's crossplay. I think it is by platform. You have to be all on
Yeah.
the same platform.
That's correct. It's separate.
Yeah. But that's I don't really have too much more to add at the moment. I did switch over from I was using Tonfas before on Ninja Stance, but now I've started embracing the dual katana life on Ninja. I really am
I'm
enjoying.
still using Tonfas. They're too powerful.
They're
too
really
powerful.
good too. Yeah, Tonfas are really good too. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I'm James. You didn't get a chance to talk too much when we were discussing the demo. I want to hear from you on like your thoughts on Neo 3 so far.
It's basically been almost identical to you. Like last night, I did a couple of hours of co-op with friends. We spent like an hour going through this cave in the south of the map, looking for all the Kodama, and it's like
Mhm.
it was like a Benny Hill sketch because it's like, how the fuck do we get to that Kodama? It was really funny. But yeah,
Was it like a whole cavern system, and at the end you had like this like
boss,
yokai
yeah.
lady at the end? Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, we did that too last night, and like my friend already explored it, so like I just kind of followed my friend through it because he's already
I was
knows
that
it.
friend, except I hadn't gotten all of the Kodama. So it's like once we had done the boss, we kind of just like went through the cave again. It's like, okay, how do we find all the chests? How do we find all the Kodama? And man, the co-op in this game is just, they really did nail it. They really did nail it.
You really can tell they really spent a lot of time making sure not only was like the optimization pretty damn good, especially for modern standards. I know some people still have issues here and there, but by in general, it seems like most people have had it running smoothly. And the co-op integration is there's really no hurdles to it. They just let you freely play with your friends, and you don't really have to think much about the how to do it once you do it.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm enjoying the game quite a bit. I mentioned a few weeks ago that I was a little bit worried about how the open world stuff was going to work in Neo 3 because I just went through like Rise of the Ronin, which is not a great open world.
Mhm.
I feel like they probably shouldn't have even called this an open world. Like, I guess technically it is, but it feels more like a bunch of levels stitched together into like one larger zone instead of it being an open world. And the way it works is really nice. Like, I'm genuinely really enjoying the level design in this game. So,
Yeah, I don't know if they've ever used the term open. I know they say open
Yeah, they
field,
haven't.
right?
They've been. I just
oh,
checked it right now. It's open field as well, and
yeah,
I think
I
we call
remember
it
when
open
Adam.
zone.
Yeah, I remember when Adam like went to like the preview event for it. They used terms like open field, open zone. I don't know if they ever used the world terminology, but obviously it's all semantics at the end of the day. Some people will jive with it, some people won't. But in general, how Neo 3 is compared to like other games of this magnitude in terms of open worlds, like the zones themselves in Neo 3 are relatively more condensed, and places of interest are usually closer together than what you'd find in other games that have this open world design.
Adam, I know you've been playing through it as well. I don't know if you've had any like complimentary thoughts or how far you've been able to get, or what weapons are you using? Have you tried co-op?
I'm about halfway through the high-end region, which is like the second zone of the game. And it was kind of funny. First of all, I have a couple comments. One, Kite in his review also talked about like how the open design was pretty much just kind of like they're very similar to levels. There are differences in terms of like the collectibles and then how the map works and the exploration levels that we talked about, but the level design itself in the open zone is definitely not like Rise of the Ronin, where it's just kind of like big open field, pick a direction. It is pretty well like, you know, intentionally
guided.
designed, right, to be like a level. But yeah, I've been using an odachi, like the big sword for samurai style, and in ninja style doing dual like ninja swords or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
I know I said
Yeah.
last week that I was messing mostly with samurai style, which I am still mostly, but I'm trying to have balance between the two styles. Um, so yeah, like, and also, I saw in Kite's review, I've seen a couple of varying comments on this, and I'm sure it just varies. Like, how long is the game? And Kite said, I think it like took him about 80 hours to finish, and I was like, what? 80 hours? No way it's that long. And then I like realized, oh, I'm at 35 hours in the second zone. Um, I guess that checks out. At least generally, time flies when you're having fun, I suppose. So
I think the one thing that I've seen some of my like people in my circle who love Neo a lot have gone through the series. I think the one thing that kind of bummed out some of them is that there are some bosses that are like kind of reused from previous Neo games in this. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not like all new bosses. There's definitely some reused bosses that came over.
yeah, usually in like the side quests, they're like pretty elaborate side quests, but I think the boss in the cave that you fight, I forget if it was in Neo 1 or Neo 2, like the
It was Neo
flying
1.
Neo 1,
Yeah.
yeah, the flying woman with like the red slashy wing stuff. Like, yep,
It was
I
actually
like,
funny because one of my buddies, like the two people I did co-op with, are actually like super super big Souls-like heads. Back when they were still playing on PlayStation, they like got the platinum trophies for like 15 or 20 different Souls-likes. They made a whole point of like going through and like licking the plate clean. And when we were going through that cave, before I even mentioned what the boss was, they were like, one of them said, "Wait a second, I recognize this cave. They're reusing some assets from like Neo 1."
yep. And then I forget the boss's name, but in a minor spoiler, because it's a reused boss, one of the later bosses, um, like Naotora for her quest that you do, it's like that four-legged dual face, like red guy, blue
It
guy.
was like halfway through like Neo 2, I
Yeah.
remember, yeah.
Oh yeah. So that guy's in the game too, and like they're like for the side quests they reuse them, which I think is, if you're going to reuse them, a fair place to do that. But I can see it being a little bit of a bummer. It's like, oh, I've already seen this. It's kind of
Yeah, because you know,
It is what
if
it
you're
is.
new game, you've issued everything
Yeah.
you saw was new. But it's like I said, it's not like
I
the
mean, it was the
biggest
same
deal.
thing with Neo 2, where it's like, I remember when I first played Neo 2, it's like, man, I love all these new enemy types. And then I went back and played the Neo 1 DLC, and it's like, wait a second. And apparently that's the same thing here. Like those crabs that you can fight in that cave, it's like, man, are these new? And then they're like, nope, Neo 2 DLC. It's like, they did it again.
I wonder if that's like a lot of the new stuff. Maybe it's like maybe the later parts of that game, like you'll see maybe Nioh 3.
I will say though, it's not really a problem because it's been so long since Nioh 2. I don't really care too much, and also this game is good enough where if you've not played Nioh 1 or 2, I wouldn't tell you to go back and play Nioh 1, especially maybe Nioh 2, but you could just play this, and because there's so much stuff that was in like Nioh 1 and 2, there's not really a major reason to go back if you don't care about the story. So,
and actually, I think I remember a very common criticism of Nioh 1 was just the enemy variety in that game wasn't great. But basically, they just, for every DLC and for Nioh 2 and for its DLCs, they kept adding more enemies. And sure, they reuse them, but now like enemy variety is not a problem because now they have 2 games or 3 games plus DLCs worths of enemies to work with, and there's new ones.
They really built. They kept on building on it. It's like Nioh 3 is like kind of the culmination of like this whole series. They just kept on building and building and building off of like and refining like systems that didn't work, but they didn't really scrap like assets that they've already made and just reuse them like to have an even more greater variety and like for newest century. Just totally fine.
So I'm trying to think of what enemies are new in Nioh 3. There's like a giant leech like thing. Oh yeah, the bees. There's like a giant like snake like leech or like thing. I think it's Nozuchi from Japanese mythology. That's new. I'm pretty sure. There's like a woman who becomes like a pot that flies around, and sometimes you see them on the map as like a big like kind of like tornado. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's new. Yeah. There's a few other ones, but yeah, it's like enemy variety is at this point pretty damn good.
So of course we've got Kite's review up on the site for Nioh 3. I'm trying to think what other. Did you do a feature on this one, Mikhail?
Yeah, I did.
Or no?
How does it play on Steam Deck?
Any major takeaways? Yeah. How does it play on Steam Deck?
It's dog shit on Steam Deck. Yep, there's the article.
You can play it on like an ROG Ally or an MSI Claw if you're fine at low settings 30 FPS. It's playable. I wouldn't do that.
It's okay, but Steam Deck 2 comes out surely. It'll run.
No,
for like $3,000.
I need one of those like Intel Panther Lake chips to come out because like I don't know if you guys saw like the benchmarks for that chip that's gonna like be in those new like Intel handhelds. It's like almost twice as fast in terms of GPU. It's kind of insane.
Oh really? Wow, I didn't see that.
But yeah, so not even worth downloading on Steam Deck. Like in fact I even got the Steam Deck LED indicator was like flashing red because it was like kind of pushing it into that overheating territory or whatever that LED does. So I was like, yep, this is just not a good idea. On ROG Ally, I was able to so here's the thing which I think a lot of people haven't realized. In Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja's Katana engine games, in a lot of them, if you set your frame rate target to say 60 and the game can't hit 60, it goes into slow motion. That's a problem in Nioh 3 as well. If you set it to 60 and you're basically hovering around like 35, your game is literally running at nearly half the speed. I saw this in professional these HDR calibration channels and all who were talking about like GPUs. One guy set the thing to 120 and his PC couldn't do that, so he was basically playing in slow motion to show the performance and didn't realize that. So you if you're playing at 60 and you can't hit that, you'd play at 30, fine, you deal with it. But on Steam Deck, when you're playing at 30, it can't do 30 even at like the absolute lowest settings. So whatever you do, you're in slow motion in the open zone. So yeah, just don't waste your time. But on ROG Ally, if you're okay with 30 FPS, it's playable for sure. Like I even did some online stuff. I joined my friend joined me. You'll get a, I don't know if I should say solid 30 FPS experience because it is stable, but it looks kind of bad. So yeah, it's literally at the bottom of where it should be. And since I had access to the PlayStation version, which I was using mostly for the few guides I did, very happy with that. When I played on my 1440 display, the DualSense stuff is fantastic. I don't know if they added that on the PC version. I didn't try that, but
I believe they do have DualSense settings on PC version. Let me double check. Controls, trigger effect strength. Yes, so that is an option.
So they added some of them. Yeah. Basically, they added this haptic for when swords clash, you can feel the thing. I like when they do that because they did that with the Nioh remasters on PS5, the Nioh collection. So that was good. The only problem I did have with it is like the animation culling is like really bad for enemies in the distance. It kind of is like almost Pokemon tier bad in the performance mode on PS5. And I don't know how it is on PC, like at the highest setting, but my friend said it's similar when he was playing at like the default on his thing. I didn't look too into that, but that was like my only complaint there. But it's definitely like the most polished day one console experience for the Nioh series, because I played Nioh 1. Yeah, go ahead.
I've heard some people say that the second region really struggles on PS5. I've heard that, so I'm playing on PC, so I can't say for sure, but I've had multiple friends say, no, like the second region has some pretty rough performance on PS5.
Okay, so I haven't tried the quality mode. I don't know if they were playing that. I assume everyone's just going to play this at 60 because
they're talking about the performance mode.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
And I will say, in terms of like PC, if you want to go for 120 FPS, you're either gonna have to use frame gen, or you need to have like a 9800X 3D, because otherwise you are going to have dips below that.
Yeah, I have a 5090 GPU, but I have a 5900X CPU. So CPU is going to be my limit here, and I just kind of decided I'm just going to play this at like max settings, but 60 frames per second lock. Like that's fine, because CPU is just a little bit on the weak side.
Yeah, I've been having a good time with like there's been like one boss fight where once a bunch of effects happened, I was like add slowdown for like a split second, but beyond that, I haven't noticed any slowdown whatsoever. So it's like I'm pretty happy, but I'm not in the second region yet, so maybe the second region I'll have to turn frame gen on or something.
But bottom line, though, compared to their previous ports, it's so much nicer. And also, probably worth mentioning, I know people, might throw a stink eye at this sort of comparison, but like looking at Steam concurrent user numbers, it is Koei Tecmo's highest ever. So that's a data point to have. It's
nearly at 85,000 right now.
Yeah, I know that it was like creeping up, and we were wondering if it was going to surpass Wolong, I believe.
I think because of how long this game is and the fact it's like got a big co-op focus, this is probably going to be one of those games that peaks higher on its second weekend.
Maybe, yeah.
It's 85,000 right now nearly, and like Sunday night US time, it might even hit like 95 or 100. We'll see.
Yeah. It's good also that they finally released this simultaneous on its platforms, because Nioh traditionally was PlayStation first and then PC.
Yeah, they were like Sony published PlayStation Studios or whatever games, like Ronin or whatever. So this is like Koei Tecmo published or whatever. And I mean, like based on the Steam numbers and
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's like based on the Steam numbers and based on the charts on PSN and all, I wouldn't be surprised if we get like a sales milestone announcement like within like Monday or Tuesday, because like for the first two games they couldn't do that because they were Sony titles until they came to PC, and they've been like vague with the Nioh series has crossed whatever. So I feel like Nioh 3 will do good enough where they don't have to like Microsoft the numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I remember when this was first announced at a state of play, like when for the split second, it wasn't clear whether or not it was going to be on PC day and date. I was like, if this is like PS5 only, I might actually buy a PS5 Pro for this, because I love Nioh, and it's like, I'm so fucking glad that was day and date PC and the PC version was actually good for once.
You have like a PS5 Pro GPU anyway, so
yeah.
Well, that covers our main two game topics for this week when talking about Dragon Quest VII Reimagined and Nioh 3. So I know I'm going to be jumping into Nioh 3, before the end of the month once I finish up my other game. So Adam, you'll have to carry me, now that we know that the co-op works really well. So I don't have to try too hard.
He'll carry you, but they'll just stay on the sidelines during boss battles and just watch you.
Well, around. I don't want to compromise. We're gonna have to talk about lack of friction in the first game. I can't just go back on that. So there you go. Alrighty. So of course the other, like the third main topic for this week, of course, is just everything related to the Nintendo Direct. We did have a Nintendo Direct. It was a partner Direct, so no new first-party announcements here. A lot of Switch 2 specific announcements in terms of ports and things like that, but a handful of other major announcements that we were going to
Before we get into this,
here.
there are a few
Yeah.
more article shoutouts, I think, before we jump directly into the Nintendo Direct here. I think.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's Mikhail. It's mainly you were able to do like a duo of interviews. One with Shinra Archeology department team, and the other with the Dosa Divas developers. So just briefly, before we dive into the meat of what happened this week, that you did some pretty important work, and you want to talk about those.
Yeah, sure. So I'll go in order. So earlier in the week, I published an interview with the Shinra Archeology department with two members of the team who like spearheaded the Shinra Archeology cut, which is the retranslation mod and restoration mod for Final Fantasy VII, like the original game. So this mod basically addresses the major translation issues because it's like notoriously bad, the original game's script. So this addresses that to bring it like up to speed with the Final Fantasy remake series and the compilation terminology which Square Enix uses in like the newer games and in all the literature. So it's aimed to like get consistency over there. And for the cut content, it actually like goes for the stuff which was already in the game files, which was just never used, and they've like done work to restore all of that and make it fit in the game. So this is something which actually, so usually when I do these interviews, like sometimes obviously we get offered interview opportunities, which is always good to see. Sometimes like in my case, at least I usually reach out. In this case, it was actually like our boss, Alex Donaldson, who like just told me that this is something which I feel like you might be able to do a good job with, and it's like right up your alley. And this was like a few months ago. And like throughout the end of the year, like it was just so busy and stuff. I just like I'll get to this, and then they finally announced that they got the Shinra Archeology cut mod working on the PlayStation 1 ROM version as well to bring the retranslation over there. So I was like, this is like pretty interesting because usually people just do these things for like SNES stuff or PC stuff. So I was like, I haven't really like modded anything on PlayStation 1 or even done that. So I was like, let me like get in touch with them and see. And they were very happy with it. Like they're fans of the site and stuff. So it worked out well doing a back and forth with them to discuss the mod, to discuss like their thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII remakes terminology. And one more thing which they do is they go into like, the Japanese guidebooks which were released back in the day and never released in English. They do these things where they post snippets of those and they have like translations of those. So I was also curious, like, had they ever run into legal issues with that kind of stuff? Because, Square Enix, they sell a lot of stuff and they make a lot of money from merchandise and books. So we covered that. We covered some of their thoughts on like the Final Fantasy brand, what they played. They were even nice enough to like post some spreadsheet, like to share some spreadsheet images for how they worked on the mod, to share screenshots of like in progress stuff. So I was very happy with this, and it also got me to actually learn how to mod Final Fantasy VII and to do it on Steam Deck, because of course I decided to do this at like 1 a.m. in the night after I got the text from the interview. So that was like a nice learning experience. It kind of reminded me of when I learned how to mod, like to install the mod for Final Fantasy IX for the Moguri mod when I was doing that comparison article. So that was interesting to see because since I have two Steam Decks, I literally was playing Final Fantasy VII Classic on one of them and Final Fantasy VII like with the retranslation mod on the other side by side. That was interesting to see. And because this interview, the timing of the interview lined up well for the Final Fantasy VII's 29th anniversary, which was a few days ago. And the other thing I had planned is a comparison to cover like Final Fantasy VII Classic. But as you know, like Square Enix announced that they were bringing a new port of Final Fantasy VII to PC. So until that releases, I can't actually do that because it'll be outdated immediately. So that was the other part from the interview. I asked them what they thought about that. And we were just discussing about how it affects the mod also. Because like, when a mod is built for one specific PC version, it's not like an insignificant amount of work to get it working on a new version. So we don't know how much time that stuff will take. So like I just think anyone who's interested in FF7 modding should just buy the current version, because you're going to get the new one for free anyway, so it's best to have both versions instead of having like just one and waiting for mods and stuff. So that was the Shinra Archeology cut interview. If you're curious about all things FF7 or just like modding on PC, I think it's worth reading. So that was the first interview I did.
So maybe this is the cynic in me, but one thing I read this interview, and one thing I'm glad about, sometimes with these retranslation these retranslation projects, sometimes you kind of get people who are like, almost feel like we know best and we're going to do it the proper way compared to the the real localizers who ruined it. And like, no, that's not the tack they take. They actually show a lot of praise for like the localization efforts on the remake series. I think they say like there's some very minor quibbles they have with a few lines here and there, but they really like the remake series localization and just felt the original game kind of needed to bring almost up to that level and up to snuff. So I kind of appreciated their approach to that.
Yeah, they're definitely like fans of Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy 7. So, like obviously most mods are labor of love, but like I've not had a chance to interview many modders really, but like this one was, I think it was a lot of fun, and it's been enough time for me that I haven't replayed Final Fantasy 7, so it was good to like this be the catalyst to get me like back into it, even aside from the fact that I wanted to compare it. So I think that was fun, and the timing worked out well for the anniversary, and like hopefully Square Enix releases that new version of FF7 so I can finish that off as well. So that was the first interview. The second interview I did was with Eka from Outer Loop Games, who like I like their Thirsty Suitors, this RPG they released like a few years ago, which they call like a breakup simulator RPG, which I'll get to that in a bit. But this was something which I vaguely remember telling Adam, like, I think this would be a good interview. And this was many months ago in 2025, and when they were supposed to announce a date and stuff. And I think the game got delayed and it went silent. And then they were finally, like, they had a demo coming out, which is out now. And they, like, said, we're having our release date. And I was like, okay, let's do the interview now. And we did it. And a lot of these interviews, which I do on call, usually, like, have a fixed set of questions which I want to cover, and then start talking about the game and stuff. When I was prepping for this one, I looked at his career, and like I knew he did a VR game, which was Falcon Age. That was the first game they made with Outer Loop Games. Then Thirsty Suitors was the next game. But then I started scrolling back and I saw, wait, Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Matrix Path of Neo, like what is happening over here? So I was like, of course I'm going to bring this up. And I did. So it was very interesting hearing him talk about his career, hearing him talk about working in the pandemic, the studio, which they are all remote. Their inspirations for this, because Dosa Divas, if you aren't familiar with, is a turn-based RPG with a focus on food. So I've seen a lot of talk about how, because there's like a timing element over here, what happens, right? Everyone's like, oh, it's Expedition 33 or whatever. Like that's the new buzzword. And I even covered that about how people only like refer to things with buzzwords now. So that's a dig at like some of the emails we get. So besides that, one thing I noticed when I was playing the demo is this has the boost system like from Bravely Default and Octopath, which I've not seen anyone talk about when they refer to this game. Everyone just says, oh, it's like Sea of Stars or it's like Expedition 33. So I brought that up, and I brought the Mario RPG stuff, and he was talking about how they looked at those kinds of games and they wanted to integrate a spice mechanic, because you're actually cooking in the game a lot. Like that's a focus. You cook dosas with different ingredients, and then your attacks have these spice. The spices are basically the element system in the game. So he's talking about his inspirations for that. How I brought up that. Do you think that having such a culturally heavy like game where you bring up references to like India, Sri Lanka, South Asia and all, will that like go over the head of people who don't care about it? And then he was talking about how the last game they made, Thirsty Suitors, it kind of had an identity problem where they tried to like throw in too many mechanics, and how that was a learning experience for them, and they wanted to be fully focused and like laser have their vision from the start on this. So they wanted everything to be simple and easy to pick up, and it like based on the demo I played, it's been a lot of fun. And I joked about this before I did the interview that, maybe I should just talk about dosas with him. So when I asked my coffee question at the end, I was like, we're going to do something differently. So we spoke about, literally after about 35 minutes on call, we were talking about dosas for 15 minutes. So that was like a lot of fun to do. And yeah, one of the more fun interviews I've done. I think if you're curious about how indies are struggling right now, or basically how someone who's been in the industry for 30 years thinks about the state of indie games and what you need to do to stand out, I think it's worth a read. And yeah, you can download Dosa Divas demo for free on Steam right now. Their announcement was it's coming to all consoles, including Switch 2, in April. So
That's
very
pretty soon.
yeah. So just very happy with how the interview turned out to discuss dosas and stuff like that, and they were pretty casual, open about how they learned the hard way with some stuff on Thirsty Suitors, which is another game I really liked, and I'm curious to see how this one does because I just played a small slice of the game in the demo. So yeah.
Also, I want to note that Scott actually previewed this game from Summer Game Fest last year, and he did not compare it to Expedition 33. He compared it to Octopath and Paper Mario.
Nice. I missed that.
So yeah, thanks for the shout out on the 2 articles that Miguel put up that happened to coincide for this week. Yeah, I didn't mean to skip past those. I literally just scrolled too far down in my outline and I missed them. But yeah, definitely check. If you go to rpgsite.net and you hit the articles tab, you should be able to see both of those near the top. With that, we'll go into the news section and we're going to focus on the announcements at the Nintendo Direct. I kind of organized this in kind of 2 fashions. One, I said the quote main announcements within that category, not organized, but the main announcements from there. And then we'll kind of rapid fire through port announcements, things that are coming to Nintendo Switch throughout the year that have been previously available elsewhere. So the first one I listed here is a game that I know that others have been predicting for a while. I think we knew a bit that the project was being worked on, but we didn't have a title. Adam, I'm going to let you take this one because you've played the game that you need to play to discuss this at length. I have not.
What is it? I don't have the document in front of me right now.
It's Kyoto
Oh,
Xanadu.
Yeah, Kyoto Xanadu
Yeah.
is the topic. I have not played Tokyo Xanadu, so I cannot properly introduce Kyoto Xanadu. It's what I'm
Actually, I think
doing.
we all played it except for you, probably. I think I
Damn
did a
it.
review in the site on Tokyo Xanadu, and I also wrote a guide on it.
Okay, let's not get too into the
I
weeds
played
here.
it.
Okay, so one of the things they announced at the
Thank you,
Nintendo
Josh.
Partner Direct was from Nihon Falcom. They've teased this before. We've seen a key visual for it several, I don't know, years ago at this point, maybe 1 or 2 years ago. It was for a new Xanadu game that was almost like a follow up to Tokyo Xanadu. This one's called Kyoto Xanadu. It is coming summer 2026 for Switch 1 and 2, PS5 and PC through Steam. They shut off a bit of the story, bit of the gameplay, and we have a bunch of screenshots up for the site. I think the thing that caught off a lot of people because they thought, hey, they're making a new action RPG Tokyo Xanadu, but the main thing that they caught people off guard is in Tokyo Xanadu, you went into these other dimensional realms that are more like linear dungeons that you traversed across to get to the boss. This one, in the traversal process up to that boss, it turns into a 2D, almost like a Metroidvania-esque perspective in traversing through this dungeon up to this boss.
Finally, Xanadu is back.
There you go. Yeah, some people have mentioned this is very reminiscent to the Xanadu, very very old Xanadu entries that Falcom has made a long time ago.
Yeah,
And I'll pass it over.
I played for Xanadu.
Yeah. I played Xanadu next. I'm not too familiar with the older Xanadu games. The farthest I got was Xanadu next.
I do think it's worth mentioning that when they teased this game, 2 years ago, they actually did say, although the game shares the same worldview as Tokyo Xanadu, the setting has been completely redesigned. The project is being developed as a completely new title in which all game systems have been created from scratch. And at the time, that's just kind of that's just fluffy fluff words. What does it actually mean?
No, it's true.
No, yeah, it seems like it is pretty much from scratch. I actually, on its face, appreciate kind of the side scroller kind of style to it because I think that might help give it a unique identity. Where Tokyo Xanadu is sort of it's kind of like Trails style, but East gameplay, kind of with like the
Bold
dungeon.
Lentils, who's a YouTube content creator and made a fantastic video about the early history of Nihon Falcom. You should go watch that if you haven't already. Actually, quote posted our post about Kyoto Xanadu and straight up mentioned a couple of things. Like, first off, there's like some references to like very early Nihon Falcom, and then they made the direct comparison where it's like the side scroller segments actually bring to mind the original like PC Xanadu in a lot of ways, which is pretty neat.
I have those on
Yeah.
I have those on Switch, the egg console version. I need to play them.
Yeah, I'm actually all for this. Like, the main reason I'm excited is Falcom, and I feel like most people here can agree with this statement. So many of their games have just gotten homogenized and they're the same structure. So having a game that very immediately is like, no, this is different. It's like, I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know how I'm going to like it. But the fact that it's very immediately different, it's like, I'm here for it. Thank God.
Yeah, I'm really thankful that like they caught everyone off guard with this, because no one is definitely expecting this. And it really helps because this is now on their new graphical engine. Obviously, Tokyo Xanadu is far back enough that like they were still using their older graphical engine. Like there's like this looping video on like the official site where it has like the main character. I think his name is like Ray Kamiya. Like he can do parkour, and there's like this whole extended like cutscene sequence that's on loop on their official site where it shows like a very like it's like a cutscene of him going away from like these two people who are pursuing him, and he's just like traversing through like rooftops in an alley, like it's something like out of a Judgment game or something from RGG, where it's very deliberate in his movements and the way that whole parkouring choreography is set up. It looks really well with the animation style and graphical aesthetic that they're using.
There's also like a school section part of this game, but it's more than just like social link stuff that we see in a lot of games now. There's actually like it's hard to like gather what exactly you do.
There's
but
like
you have,
a management thing where
there's like cards.
and...
Yeah, there's like cards and stats that like will obviously play into how you like play the game. So that's like the two halves of the game, and that also seems kind of new and different. Like I wonder how that's gonna work.
I also love the like blink and you miss it, like maybe implication that like Tokyo Xanadu for whatever reason had Toa, like just straight up Toa from Trails of Cold Steel, and it might be possible that like fucking Reed is a character in this. Yeah.
Yeah, he shows up as a sticker, like in like one of like the text messages.
But what if you boot up the game, you go into your classroom, you're waiting for the teacher, and all of a sudden comes in Reen, he's like, "Hello, class. I'm your teacher." Reen, some other name now.
That I would actually, if they're going to like double down on that bit, having Reen be one of the teachers would actually be pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what Toa is in Tokyo Xanadu.
Yeah, they're just funny cameos. Like they're not like story relevant. Like the last thing like this series, like these Xanadu games need is like this is like mandatory to know for Trails. It's like no, they're just like one-off funny cameo goofs. If you know them, it's funny. If not, you're not missing anything.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, like Brian might be confused. I don't know. Like there is a character in Tokyo. There's a character in Tokyo Xanadu. Her name is Toa. She looks like Toa, but it's like I think the last name might be different. It's not Toa Herschel, it's Toa something else. But like it looks like her, it sounds like her, but it's just a different character. It's just kind of a gag. Just like it's alternate universe Toa.
And this is coming, and they didn't really like show off too many like details or didn't go into like many systems. Like, hey, here's footage of it, and here's some press screenshots, and then we'll hear more about it when it comes closer to release later this year. But a cool, fun thing that they showed off there. I'm very interested.
I don't remember if we mentioned this yet or not. We know the platforms. It's PS5's PC, Switch 2, and maybe PS4 also.
And Switch 1.
Oh, and
no,
Switch
no
1.
PS4, but Switch 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Same as Trails first.
Yeah, but we also do not know the Western publisher. Like, is it Axis? Is it Gung Ho? Is it NIS
We do
America?
not know.
Exceed? Who knows?
Or Falcom themselves somehow.
Yeah, Clouded Leopard.
I'm beginning to think that what happened with like first chapter was because we know that the studio that did the translation wasn't gung ho, it was like Actel.
Yeah,
I think that Falcom's been actually directly licensing like Actel or like other companies like that, and then going to publishers after the fact, being like, who wants to handle the actual like publishing for like the retail release and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely possible.
The next headline that I have is one that I know a couple of people here have been really excited about. There was some scuttlebutt before it released that we might see this, and that is a follow-up to Paranormasight. This is Paranormasight, The Mermaid's Curse. It is going to be releasing in not too long on February 19th for Switch, Steam, and mobile phones. And this is the follow-up to Paranormasight, The Seven Mysteries of Hanjo. Now it's not follow-up in terms of it's got the Paranormasight tag, but it's not like a sequel. It's
They're
a
standalone games.
standalone Paranormasight game. So, Josh, I think you were one of the people that was very excited to see this.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Paranormasight head. I went into the so this is an interesting release. One, it was announced and then coming and it's going to be released very shortly. It's coming February 19th, so like in 2 weeks. I believe that the first game was released in a similar manner where it was announced and coming very shortly. But people didn't know Paranormasight back then. It was a very unknown quantity. People didn't know what to expect, and now, of course, it's gained a lot of fans, including me. Like you said, coming to Switch, Steam, and mobile platforms. This is a very interesting observation. I'm glad I forgot who, but someone made an observation and reminded me that the first Paranormasight was only announced and shown off at the Japanese Nintendo Direct, the first Paranormasight. It was not shown at the English Nintendo Direct at that time. And now, this is pretty much, this announcement is now not only in the English Nintendo Direct, but it was also one of the first headliners of the whole show. Like the first one was for a Switch 2 exclusive co-op game that they've announced before. It looks really, really cute. I forget the name off the top of my head. Yes, but then after that, the actual first new game that they showed off was this new Paranormasight game, which is, I don't know, that to me that's really special in that event. But as you mentioned, Brian, it is even though it is has the Paranormasight name, it does have an all new cast, all new story, all new premise. You do not need to. I assume you don't need to play the first one at all to understand this one. That's how they're marketing this. But the first one is on sale for a limited time
Like
for
$5.
$5.
Yeah.
Yeah, $5. I highly recommend people to buy it at that price and play through it because it's a fantastic game. I remember, interviewing several of the key staff several years ago when the first game came out. More about the details of that game and their earnestness to hopefully continue this as a series. And the first Paranormasight did get like some manga that unfortunately I don't think it's been localized outside of Japan. But they mentioned in interviews for this new Paranormasight that they only got to do this because the first one was a success. This wouldn't have come to be if the first one didn't take off, and luckily it did. Not only in Japan but also overseas. And anytime, I don't know how big the fan base is, but people who played through the first Paranormasight and talk about it kind of share that same love with me of like, this is something that you really have to experience and see for yourself and try not to know too much about what it is going in. So I have pretty high expectation going to this one. They have the same key staff, same people worked on the first Paranormasight, and I don't know. I'm just really, really, really happy to see this series continue. It's such a special game, and I hope they continue to keep it up with this one. Some of the new elements that they're showing is because it's now taking place on an island, where there's like some like diving mini game and some more puzzle elements involved. You do see a little bit in the screenshots and the trailer that the overall visual fidelity is much more versatile than the first game. I assume they got at least a little bit more resources in the first game to develop this title due to this how well that succeeded. So it's just what can I say? I'm really glad that this is happening. I'm overjoyed.
And I guess we'll be able to talk about it in like a couple weeks. So it's fun that it's so soon.
Just one question for Josh. You mentioned how it was in both directs. Do you remember if the Centennial case was just in the Japanese one, or it just got me to think about that?
That's a good question. That's a good. I don't. Was it in the direct? Was Centennial Case ever in a direct?
It was
Okay.
revealed in a direct. I feel like it was also just in a Japanese one because it was one of those things where, yeah. So I was just curious because like I still hope we get a follow up to that also. But yeah, it's good to see.
I really hope to. Yeah, Centennial Case, for people who don't know, was this like FMV game, like a full on FMV game from Square Enix. That was pretty fantastic in its own right too.
Here's another one that I don't think anyone was expecting to see in a Nintendo Direct, and one that I know that Josh and Chow were excited to see. We saw Granblue Fantasy Relink make an appearance at the Nintendo Direct. They announced Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok. It is coming out for PlayStation, Switch, and PC on July 9th. Now, I remember when this first was shown, there were questions like, is this DLC? Is this an expansion? Is it like a gold edition, the new game? What is it? And handing back over to you, Josh. I know you've kind of dug down to figure out exactly what this is, who it adds, what to look forward to.
So yeah, I'll make a clarification. It's their Switch 2 because you just said Switch. It's just Switch 2 only for coming to Switch platforms. So it's PS5, Switch 2, PS4, and PC. So with the Switch 2 release of Granblue Fantasy Relink, it does bundle in the base game and this Endless Ragnarok expansion. So at first we were like you said, we were all kind of confused. Like, what is this exactly? So with the Switch 2 release, since it's new, it'll bundle in the base game and this Endless Ragnarok expansion. And this Endless Ragnarok expansion will also be coming to all the previously released platforms that Relink came out on as a $30 upgrade. And it adds new missions, new story content, new bosses. It adds 4 new playable characters. 2 of them are from the Granblue universe that people know who play Granblue know of. Are Beatrix and Eustace. People who play the fighting game will also know who these 2 characters are because they are in the Granblue Fantasy versus Rising fighting game. They are also making playable at long last those 2 cool bosses that you fought in the base Relink game, Galanza and Magliel. They will now be playable characters with Endless Ragnarok, which is huge win. I really like these characters. I'm glad that they're going to be playable now. Along with that, they announced they had like a showcase live stream that happened later in the day after the partner direct that delved into more details about Endless Ragnarok. They're gonna have new Chaos tier quests, which are new quests that have a new difficulty. So, like a lot of the Endless Ragnarok content is adding more to the end game basically. And these Chaos tier quests have like new Master tier traits or Master traits for the existing cast and the new cast, which will modify their gameplay. So like I know Gran, for example, or Gran Jita, depending on which protagonist you went with, like they can get like a healer role. So if someone like heals them, they'll get like a buff to like their unique action, which is for Gran and Jita. Like you had like several stages to get through, like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then you fire off skills that are powered up depending on the stage. That was like one example of their unique mechanics. So I'm interested to see how this new master trait system will shake up the existing balance of the cast, because the producer Fukuhara mentioned that they're basically like doing like a whole balance pass along with this Endless Ragnarok system. One of the big things with this Endless Ragnarok expansion is they are finally adding crossplay to the game. I believe there's a system update. I do not think it's like a DLC expansion exclusive thing, because that wouldn't. I can't imagine how that would work if that was DLC exclusive expansion. I think that crossplay will just be a base system tier thing, which is one of the big requests from people, because a lot of the allure of Relink was multiplayer, and obviously as more time passes on with each player, the player base in each platform drying up, People wanted crossplay because it's getting harder to find people. So they are integrating that into the game. This is coming out July 9. I'm trying to think what else off the top of my head.
The one thing about the crossplay is they have a closed beta coming up, and you need a
Right.
Cygames ID for that. So the game obviously didn't need any ID like that before. You could just play it using your Steam account with other people on Steam or just PSN normally. But yeah, when I was signing up for the closed beta, you have to make a Cygames ID. Or I assume if you play Uma Musume or Granblue, you already have those. But I think Granblue has the Mobbage account or something like that, right? I
Yeah,
haven't used it in a
Granblue is a
while.
more like
Okay.
Chow, remind me, but they did integrate the Cygames ID system into Granblue some while back. There is still the other methods to logging into it, but I think they're gradually trying to phase them out in favor of the Cygames ID thing that they're doing. But you would be
They
more
only
familiar
use
with
Okay.
that.
they used to have a lot of things. They used to have Facebook, Twitter, what was it? And a few other options, but it's down to like free options now. It's down to Mobage, DMM, and
All right.
Yahoo.
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, it's
Sure.
like down to those free. That's what I remember
But
from what I know.
is there like a Cygames ID thing that they're doing in Japan too, like for Granblue login, or is it just it's not integrated?
I
into
think
that?
those are like for the more modern games, maybe like
Okay.
Uma Musume and Shadowverse, I believe probably, but not in
Interesting.
Granblue. Granblue is still stuck in the time of its age.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
So the
Got
other
it.
thing is it's getting a physical release on the same platforms. Switch 2 is a key card, but we don't know. Like pre-orders are not up, so we don't know if it's going to be a similar deal to Relink's base game. Because with that, Cygames published it digitally, but the physical one was being done by Exceed.
Right.
So I
Right.
didn't see a mention of Exceed in the press release. So I don't know if it's going to be the same deal with that, but there is a physical for like North America for sure. I don't know about Europe, but North America has one and Japan has one because I saw the box art for the Japan thing.
Yeah,
So
they
yeah,
also
I think
mentioned like a
that's the
side
only thing.
store thing, like a like super expensive edition too,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
live
yeah.
stream. So
Because
yeah,
they did the like the Ragnarok edition. Not it wasn't called Ragnarok edition, but it had that in the collector's edition for the base game on PS5, if I remember correctly. Uh, but yeah, like they haven't announced the big collector's edition for the West yet. I feel like they should have done one for the Switch too, at least. But anyway, like my main thing is I'm just so happy they have crossplay on this because like now it's not
yeah,
like where am I buying the DLC? It's just like I can just buy it on PS5. You can play it on PC. We can play together. Like I'm
yeah.
pretty sure when like Granblue Relink was a thing, I feel like I played it with like a lot of people pre-release early when I was testing it on Steam Deck and stuff, and then I replayed the whole thing on PS5. Like, don't need to do that now. Just pick one and stick to it.
Yeah. I think they're also adding like a solo roguelike mode that'll give you rewards as well as part of the expansion. But either way, great news. Relink was a fantastic game. They did like Fukuhara mentioned that like the only reason that they made Endless Ragnarok, like the original plan was just to have those 3 post-launch updates to Relink and be done with it. But because it was so successful, the only reason Endless Ragnarok got made because Relink went way above their expectations and people wanted more. And instead of like doing piecemeal updates, like a live service game model, they decided, hey, we're just gonna wait to build on like more and more onto it and just release it as its own expansion for people instead of like doing this like piecemeal update, which could have been a hit or miss, really. Which I think ultimately I feel like this is the right decision. Go for it, James.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we're getting this because I really enjoyed Relink, and what's the best way of saying that I'm increasingly not sure if an expansion to Monster Hunter Wilds is going to do enough to fix that game's core issues. I think that they might be too heavily baked into that game. So I'm glad there's something for me to look forward to that scratches a similar itch, if that makes sense.
I'm very interested to see if I'm gonna like pour another 100+ hours into this expansion, and depending on how much they add, man, that base game was they already had a lot. I'm curious to see how much they add on, but I wanna I want to play with people in this. Get the squads back together and play together. I'm very
I have
happy.
a
I'm very
I have a
happy.
question. So if you
Yeah.
have like a account like Adams where he's everything 99, got all the weapons, it's like, do you just like blitz through the game if they release the expansion, or do they have some kind of way to like kind of mitigate that problem? Like, I'm not sure. Like maybe coming from someone that played like Iceborne from Monster Hunter, like when they release a new expansion, like how does your gear
Well, they have the
progress
new
look?
like master traits or whatever that I'm assuming it's like if you want to do the Ragnarok content, you probably have to like update your characters with this,
Build
however it
layout.
works.
Yeah,
They
because
added scatter tree fragments. That's what they did.
because Monster Hunter, how it works, Chow, with their expansions, like they used to call it like G rank for their new releases, their expansions, which added like a whole new upper tier of like weapons and armor. So you have to go do G rank or master rank quests, which are harder, but you gain like master rank materials from them to go build up master rank weapons and armor to properly take on those new quests. So we'll see how they do it with Relink into Endless Ragnarok, because obviously people who have spent hundreds of hours building up their characters, they do reliable. They have their build, they have their reliable damage. They've raised their damage cap to ridiculous degrees. We'll see how they handle that, because obviously people don't want new stuff that they can just like blitz through like in a few hours. They want something that will challenge them, and that was like a lot of the allure for Relink is like, there was definitely some stuff added to that game that really challenged you, the deeper you went.
The next announcement that I have from the Nintendo Direct, this is a game that we knew that we were going to see, but we didn't know a release date, and that is The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. This is the HD 2D Square Enix game being developed by Clay Techworks. That's very much in the vein of like a top-down Zelda or East game. We saw a trailer at the Nintendo Direct announcing that it's going to be launching worldwide on June 18th. Of course, coming to Switch 2, but also Xbox, PS5, and PC. And then Adam, I know you recently, I think last night or maybe the night before, dug into like the press release for all the additional information that came out for Adventures of Elliot. So just since you had to pull that all together, any other key takeaways from the announcement? Of course, we got the release date for the Nintendo Direct, but all the other stuff that you put together for it.
I think the main thing is that I don't know how obvious this was before, and maybe it was, and I don't know, but like this is like a time travel story where there's like 4 different eras you go to throughout the game, and like your weapons that are going to be available might change a bit from era to era. So it's got like multiple weapon types, which is almost more like a classic Mana game, right? Um, but yeah, there's like the press release and the screenshots that we got. They talk about 4 different eras that you go to. I don't have it in front of me here, but you're trying to solve like a curse, and yeah, you have your main character Elliot Adventure Man and his faithful fairy Faye,
Elliot Adventure Man.
who is definitely not going to betray you and want to blow up the world.
Hmm. Are you saying it's another action RPG that has a time travel element to it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this. I played that demo last year on Switch 2, and like unsurprisingly, this is a 2D Zelda style game. And from what I can say about the previous demo, this is shaping up to be pretty good. I'm super excited. Super excited.
Yeah, and then they also showed off some of the feedback that they got for the debut demo and some adjustments they're adding, like increasing Elliot's movement speed, which is nice. Difficulty levels, new difficulty levels, and just refining some of like the like how you're moving around the UI, like the weapon shortcut menu, making that feel better. So the demo, feedback from demo does helps to make your games better. Team Ninja very good at it with their games.
Now I've seen some people like I actually went to the Steam page and if you ever want to get upset at something, check out the Steam forums. And people are like, "Where's the Steam demo? How dare you not have a Steam demo?" And it's like, I have a feeling there probably will be a Steam demo, just not yet. And I like if there's going to be a demo, there's probably going to be another one. That's not
My
the
bet
first
is
one.
since it comes out probably like 2 weeks after Summer Game Fest, something around there, it's probably going to be like, here's a final trailer at the Summer Game Fest showcase, and it's a here's a demo that will have save transfer to the full game. I bet
Yeah.
you it's going to be something like that.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Josh, do you want to take this next one? I can't do it.
It seems like there's a lot for me in this Nintendo Direct, huh?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I know. I think I'm kidding. I know. So this is a really interesting one. Y'all like that Octopath Traveler 0 from last year, so we have another one of those. They announced another Eden Begins for Nintendo Switch 2, Switch 1, and PC for summer 2026. This is developed by and published by Right Flyer Studios, but the developer itself is like an offshoot from Right Flyer Studios, a newly made studio called Studio Prisma. And when I first saw this, I'm like, I thought exactly what what it turned out to be was like they're making an offline single player version of another Eden, much like how Octopath Zero was offline single player version of Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, the mobile game. It is rebuilt from the ground up, where I try to describe this for people who didn't play Another Eden, which is a lot of people. Another Eden was a free-to-play mobile game that was very much... It felt like playing through a single-player RPG, but it did have like a gacha system to earn characters. But it was, it had all that sort of stuff. It had like collabs that that are still up there, and it's a really charming story. Once again, time travel is involved, but it does have like the key staff who created Chrono Trigger. Yeah, Masato Kato.
I saw some people commenting like, "Wait, this game is just aping off of Chrono Trigger." How dare they?
Yeah, how dare they? They had the Frog Companion too. That's just shameless. Shameless.
No, people didn't realize that. Yeah, the writers.
I know.
So Josh, I'm gonna have to play this because when I was going through Chrono Cross recently, one of the people in my stream chat straight up said, "Hey, I know you're gonna be playing Harvestella. I'm glad that you played Chrono Cross first because like Another Eden, the game that that Kato worked on, like the director of Harvestella, like one of their first projects was Another Eden.
Another Eden. Yeah.
So it's like I'm pretty excited to check that out.
It's a really cool story about Aldo and his sister. I forgot for their siblings. Not blood related. I forgot honestly what their relationship was, or childhood friend. I forgot. They're close. So Aldo and Fine. Feinne. Is it Fine? I'm already forgetting. But it's basically a journey across different time because Fine gets kidnapped and Aldo has to go through many different eras in this complex storyline to kind of find her and get her back. So you meet much like Chrono Trigger, different companions from different time periods along the way as you're trying to unravel this greater conspiracy that's happening. It's a really minor thing to point out, but in the original game, the way that you traversed through it was through left and right linear lanes. So you're going left and right through this road, and if you want to go to the next road to advance, you'd have to go swipe up on these distinct paths that go up to the next plane to continue going left or right to your destination. While in Another Eden Begins, they have fully 3D paths that you can go up and down without switching a lane through. And to me, that's oh shit! That was one of the big small things that no normal person would think any of it. But I've put hundreds of hours into Another Eden before eventually dropping off because that's kind of the fate of most free to play live service games for me. Is eventually I'm okay, I can't do this anymore. But it has a new UI, new battle UI. That's one of the first things that caught my eye too. Was hey, it's a turn-based RPG, and it has a lot of interesting quirks to it. Where in the original game, I don't know exactly how this Another Eden Begins will handle it, but in the original game, you have a team order. Depending on I believe speed or agility stats, determines team order on this. And it's round based where you select everyone's like actions, then you hit execute, and it'll have everyone execute their action. And you're through these actions, whether you're buffing, debuffing, attacking, etc., you're building up this gauge at the top right corner, and it's like I forgot exactly what it's called. It's like a bonus gauge or a super meter, whatever. But once it's full, you can activate it, and you gain and when you activate it, you're able to pretty much spam your skills during this whole bonus state, and your skills now work off of a cooldown, so you can spam skills and people will activate it. But once you activate them, they'll work off of like a timed cooldown. And as you're doing these skills in this state, they have like increased damage. You're building up this attack multiplier, so you can get like really big numbers off of it. And there are some like skills that like gradually build up this bonus gauge as it's depleting, just very slightly, so you can kind of squeeze out extra time to really maximize like your damage output through it. So that's kind of like the very basic system behind it. Is you are trading blows with your opponents in a turn-based format, but there's like this state that you can activate to really like juice up your damage and really take command of the battle on it. I don't know exactly how far they're gonna get in terms of like the system, because eventually that game got really crazy with like its system mechanics in terms of like elemental zones, weapon zones, and how characters synergize with one another, with some characters having like multiple states and different move sets in them. It gets really crazy in that game. I do know that since obviously there's no gacha system in this game, they're gonna have like 18 companions from the base game. I saw some screenshots already has like some of like the characters that were previously 5-star characters in the base game, like be a part of your roster in this game. I'm very curious to see like how they balance characters, because there's definitely some characters that felt weaker or stronger depending on their rarity. Hopefully they find like a happy medium where everyone feels competent and viable and not like kind of shunned. The main two characters, Aldo and Fine, have character design rework. So Aldo has like a whole new outfit to him. Fine like looks like a completely different character, based off of like her original design and her new design. She looks a little bit like older, a little bit more matured. Like it's not like censorship or anything. It's like it's more fitting to like the story, in my opinion. So I do like her design rework off of this from the original game. I'm very curious to see where it goes. They did mention it's a fully voiced story from the interviews that they did with Famitsu. It'll have a new game plus and have over 10 different endings. And they seem to hint from the Famitsu interview that some of the content might be new game plus exclusive. And there's definitely something.
Can I jump in here?
Go for it. Yeah.
They actually highlight this on the Steam page.
Oh,
where
good.
they say, so there in one section of the Steam page, they say, after completing the main story, another adventure awaits with New Game Plus. All of the characters retain their strength for this new journey as actions and choices determine which of over 10 endings will unfold. That sounds pretty normal, with the exception of like 10 endings. But then later on, it actually says, clear the main story to unlock New Game Plus and start a new adventure with your characters as they were. With the aid of a mysterious girl who prompts Aldo to undertake this new journey, discover over 10 different endings that unfold based on your actions and choices. So it's like a slightly different take on New Game Plus, where like you beat the game and then some timeline girl or something shows up and it's like, hey, let's do it again. And I don't know, somehow you can do different endings the second time through. Which is, I guess, sort of similar to Chrono Trigger, because Chrono Trigger has lots of different endings too that you can normally not really
Chrono
do.
Cross, where it's like Chrono Cross, you have like just the two main endings. You can get your first playthrough, and then a New Game Plus, you can get slightly different ones. So.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So
you just get to beat the final boss in your in different timelines. Well, or you didn't have access to it technically.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm I'm definitely gonna play this in a heartbeat when it releases. I am all for more of these offline single player conversions of like pretty well-established mobile games that have had the only thing that really held them back from the general normal player was their monetization structures, which I get it, you know.
They said they were influenced by Octopath Traveler Zero. That it's like
I don't think the timeline would work in terms of like development progress. I don't think it's like, oh, they saw what Octopath was doing. It's like, no, this project was definitely in the works for years.
They definitely saw Octopath Traveler 0 in December and decided, let's make this game and we're ready to show it in February.
No,
that sounds a little.
They teased another Eden coming to Switch years ago. I want to say like maybe it feels like 5 to 6 years ago at this point, maybe even longer than that. And then it never happened. They also teased like in a game magazine for another Eden's anniversary, like this Another X project. It's like the project was called like Another X, and but no one knew what was going on, and people are like, maybe this was the project that they were doing, that they were teasing way back when. For this. So this has been in the works, it feels like, for quite some time. And because of the title, Another Eden Begins, people are wondering, for me, I have a general idea of like where this game will end in terms of like where the story cutoff will be, which is like it will be a conclusive arc if it's the part 1 ending that I'm thinking of in the mobile game, which is already feels like, in the mobile game, this whole part 1 took maybe 50 to 60 hours in general to complete. So it was already pretty lengthy. And then I believe the mobile game is now like quote unquote in part 3 or maybe part 4 of the story, which like these are all storylines that have a definitive start and definitive end. So I'm curious to see, because of how this is called Another Eden Begins, if it's successful. Hopefully it is, in my opinion. If they're gonna do sequels and follow-up games to this that cover the other arcs that happen after part 1, because I think part 2, like I played through part 2 in the mobile game and I really like that part. It has like some interesting stuff going on in it. So yeah, I'm this is one of those announcements that like I like me and not many people in the world like it was very unexpected. But I'm very much like, with those like few people in the world like go, yeah, let's fucking go, man. This is definitely one of those games that like, I wish this happened for, and it's now finally manifesting. And I hope this just knocks it out of the park, and a lot of people get exposed to Another Eden. I think it's a genuinely excellent game, and I hope this game does really well for them. I would like to see this continue. I hope more mobile games get this conversion as well. Like, people mentioned Dragalia Lost, New Reincarnation. People were saying, because side games and Nintendo were kind of playing pretty nicely with this whole Granblue reveal at Nintendo Direct. Since they're talking again, maybe maybe. But Near Reincarnation, Dragalia Lost, for me, like I really hope Heaven Burns Red, the one from Key, gets this sort of treatment, because Heaven Burns Red is a genuinely excellent game. I really, really like its story, its characters, its music. I think the one thing I don't like about it, obviously, is its live service gacha game structure, but also they really need to rework like the moment-to-moment gameplay on it to make it a really compelling thing, because I like everything about Heaven Burns Red except the act of playing through Heaven Burns Red. But like people praise, like, generally turn-based RPGs are fun to play through if you like, the turn-based menu nature of it. I think Heaven Burns Red is one of those few instances where turn-based goes wrong, and their whole turn-based mechanic in it is not a fun one to. I don't like their game design philosophy in it, but that's just a me thing.
I basically hear the same thing for all my friends on why they dropped the game. They just don't like the gameplay, but they love the story.
Yeah. Man, I could go on and on, but I don't want to. But yeah,
it's like, what I need? I need a Fate Grand Order that doesn't have the gacha and just have me just read a visual novel. They need something like that.
I don't know how they would work for a single player offline conversion for F8 Go. There's so many. I don't want them to keep the gameplay system. If they're gonna do it, they have to rework it. I don't know what they do for it. I genuinely at a loss, because that game has like hundreds of characters. I don't know where you draw the line. and obviously they would never do it because their current model just prints money. And the least exciting part about Fate Go and playing through it is like already the early parts of Fate Go. So like releasing that first part as its own standalone separate thing is already a daunting process because a lot of its earlier arcs before Camelot kind of suck. So yeah, I don't know what you would
Like
do.
50 hours before it gets good.
uh,
And did we at the start of it all? Did we say that this is coming out in summer? Like
yeah,
it's like
I
it's
mentioned it. Yes.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that was the last major thing from the Nintendo Direct. We did get a bunch of others announcements that are more related to like new dates, reports, or demos that have existed for most primarily for Switch 2. Like, and I'm just gonna rapid fire through these, but please stop me if there's something like that we want to dive into on one of these specifically. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is launching for Nintendo Switch 2 as well as Xbox Series on June 3rd. This includes the like the what do you call it? The standard Square Enix easy mode like
Streamlined
toggles they can
progression,
go into. Yeah. Which will almost certainly get back ported at some point to the existing versions of the
Well,
game.
didn't they confirm that it is?
Did they say it? Maybe. This happened when I was at the when I was at work. I didn't see this the event live, but I'm reading through it.
I don't think they did for
Yeah,
this
maybe not.
explicitly, but they probably will because they were coy about it for the remake, and they said, "Oh, if there's enough demand, we'll consider." And then suddenly, oh, it's coming the same day. Like, sure, Jan. So it's probably gonna be the same thing.
My only other comment is this is a bit sooner than I expected. Remake came
Yeah.
out in January.
I think it's gonna be because I think it's because they probably will reveal part 3 at either the Summer Games Fest in June, sorry, and they probably like begin heavily marketing that for probably launching it for the 30th anniversary of FF7, which is in early Feb 2027. I think that's like the timeline that makes the most sense.
I don't
And
know.
it's pretty
I think
cheap.
I think part 3 is gonna be a state of play. I feel like they always reveal the FF7 remake stuff in state of plays first before.
Yeah, I mean,
on
yeah,
hope-
that's fine. Like they probably do it at something in June, basically, because they want to get like Rebirth out, and like yeah, it's coming out quite soon. But the one thing I was surprised about is, it's like they have it for $50 instead of 70, which is what I think it still is on the other platforms. It's going to get a price drop on the other platforms this week to match the upcoming Switch 2 and Xbox versions. So it'll be 50, and the pre-orders are discounted by like even more. So you can get it for like 40 digitally for a pre-order. So like I haven't finished Rebirth yet. I've tried twice. I got further than PS5 on Steam Deck because I just thought the PS5 version in performance mode looks awful. So I'm hoping like I finish playing it now on the Switch 2 version with streamlined progression, and that DLSS does a lot of heavy lifting because yeah, that game, yeah, less said the better about some aspects of it. But yeah.
I suffered. I went through the PS4 or PS5 performance sludge version for 90 to 95
Yeah.
hours to finish it. It was awesome. It was great.
Yeah,
But
so the main thing was like that, and they're also doing the Magic the Gathering collaboration for the Switch 2 keycard physical release. They have like a Nomura special like Zack card included. They did like a booster pack for remake, and they're doing this for part 2 Rebirth. And that's also gonna be up for pre-order soon. I saw it up like the Japanese release. No pre-orders yet for the English release physical. So
I really
Josh, what were you
do
saying?
wonder. I really do wonder about the rumors about this for FF7 Part 3 remake. Because the one, I mean, the most obvious like first rumor is like it's going to be revealed at a state of play fairly soon before SGF. I don't know. Obviously, these are all take it with a grain of salt thing because they now that the remake trilogy is coming to other platforms, they're kind of as Adam mentioned, like even a Rebirth coming so soon to the other platforms, we thought it was going to be somewhat way later on that because of the scope of the game. Thought it was going to be see how that goes. But two, whether Part 3 is going to be released simultaneously on platforms instead of like being a PlayStation exclusive first and PC after, and then the
No, I
other
think it'll be on
platforms after.
everything. I think
Yeah,
it'll be on
yeah.
everything for sure. They
Day one.
might do some nonsense where they give you some PlayStation exclusive costume or something if they want, but I feel like give you like if you've noticed with Remake, it had like 1 year exclusivity which got extended to 6 months. Then it released on Epic, no one bought it there, and then it got delayed again to come to Steam. But for Rebirth, sorry, after that was 16. 16 was 6 months officially on paper. That's what they advertised, but Square Enix just took their sweet time. And then for Rebirth, officially it was 3 months. So it's already been like reducing. So I feel like the part 3, it's not really going to benefit Sony per se. Like they got what they wanted from part 1 and they got what they wanted from 16 also. I don't think they'll bother with what's happening with part 3. Like you said, right, they might reveal it and have like maybe some exclusive DLC or whatever, but I just don't see it happening. I feel like Square Enix's whole push now is just going to be on everything, and that would work out better for the game also.
I mean, we see it with Nioh 3, right? They were like, I literally talked to them about this and like, why are we releasing on Steam? And basically they said, we want those Steam sales at launch. Be part of that hype cycle, be part of that launch cycle. And you saw the delayed sales of like Rise of the Ronin or Nioh 2 on PC or whatever. And we don't have like hard sale numbers, but Rebirth and Remake probably would have done better on PC if they were there from day one. So I Square Enix is going to make every effort to do that. I agree with McKay.
They need to have the fucking Neo 3 philosophy with this FF7 remake part 3, because it's not enough to just have it available day one on all platforms. They really need to
Work needs to be decent.
Yeah, exactly. They need to get their optimization shit in line, because the optimization efforts for FF7 remake and Rebirth on PC have been dire on them, frankly, especially on the options front, where it's so bare bones. It's so bad.
And remake got a new PC port because they had to like do the Xbox Play Anywhere thing, and it's still the same, and they've not fixed up the thing at all. So like, you can't just like, I think this is something which a lot of publishers are learning the hard way. This isn't like 2010 or something where just bringing your big IP to PC and Steam is going to be, oh wow, like I can't believe this is here, let me buy it to support. There are more games than people have time and money for. So like you need to like stand out in a good way. You can't just like shit out this thing and like, oh, why is no one buying it or whatever. And like after all they did for Rebirth, like they, like I feel like, imagine the promotion they did where they gave you like a twin pack bundle. They did these huge discounts. Like why couldn't they have just put some more effort into the port? Like it's still not fixed. So like I don't know what to say.
I think do you think there's no way they're gonna do this, right? But do you think they're gonna do the streamlined progression stuff on day one for part 3, or do you think it just comes out later, months later?
No, that's a question.
I wouldn't bet on that one. I feel that wouldn't be there. I think that just ruins the fun of the game, really. I think it'll be added.
Get the platinum trophy in like 5 hours or something.
Look, the only thing that's cock blocking me from the platinum and Rebirth is the outer world fight. that's basically it.
And you're just like, oh, thank God, streamlined progression is coming to that I can get the platinum finally. But yeah, I mean, I think the responsible thing is don't offer it on day one. Give me like 6 months after, perhaps, because I think it just would ruin the point of.
Maybe Sony gets streamlined progression as an exclusive.
Okay, that'd be really funny. Actually, that'd be hilarious. There's no way, but that'd be really funny. But it's cool that it's coming so soon to Switch and Xbox platforms. Rebirth, and finally getting everyone on the same page if they're gonna actually have part 3 day one worldwide simultaneous on all platforms. Like everyone gets to be on the same footing to see the conclusion of this trilogy wherever it may go.
Oh yeah, there's one more thing. The eShop pre-orders are live, so like Rebirth is 105 GB, that's confirmed. So that means if you have Remake and Rebirth, that's like 200 GB of your internal storage, which is like, I think 210 or 20 is what you get. Like it's just gone. So like you can't actually have all 3 parts without an SD card on Switch too.
I mean, of course, the normal person will be like, I'll just download and install these, but like, I'll play through one, get done with that, delete it, download and install the next part. Don't have all 3 parts with you like at all times. Like, hey, play through what you need, But it does, I think it was like inevitable because the size of these things are. That's a reality we all have to contend with. I mean, these games aren't just. They're not going to be 5 gigs, the scope of them.
A couple other port announcements. We got a couple from Bethesda. Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition is going to be launching on Switch 2 before the end of the month on February 24th. And then the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered will launch in 2026 for Switch 2.
This kind of stung a bit as people like when they tease like this is our last announcement of the show, and then you see Todd and like, fuck. Okay, yeah. Todd. What do you want?
I completely forgot. Just quickly, the Dosa Divas interview, when I asked about Morrowind, he said Todd Howard is the best boss he's ever had. I found that like quite interesting.
Okay.
So yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. But yeah, Oblivion, I don't know how it's gonna run because it's kind of unoptimized on everything right now. And the Switch 2 kind of struggles with UE5 lighting. So either they'll have sorted it by then or we're gonna get a port that looks like the Steam Deck version. So yeah, let's see how that eventually releases. But yeah, I am excited to like see how Fallout 4 runs on this when it comes out. Hopefully, since it's a cross-gen game, it's good, but they messed up the Skyrim port, so.
This is one I don't think people were expecting. Tales of Arise is coming to Switch 2 as Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn on May 22nd. It has the DLC or the whatever his DLC expansion, whatever that thing that they added to it.
Expansion, yeah.
Yeah. So all as a single package coming on May 22nd.
This is a weird one because of the performance targets on Switch 2, where the docked and handheld modes are targeting 60 FPS for basically for everything except the battles, and the battles will be 30 FPS. That
skits
sucks.
are also 30. Like exploration, skits, and it's just cutscenes which are 60. And Bandai Namco, when they mention 30 and 60, they mean up to, even though they don't explicitly say that. So it's probably just going to be uncapped, because I remember when Vesperia was listed as 30 FPS exploration and 60 FPS battles, it was actually just uncapped everywhere. So if you play Vesperia on Switch 2, it's just 60 FPS everywhere because you can brute force that. So like maybe Tales will be 60 FPS on Switch 3, like hype.
I don't know, man. Sure, that's not gonna feel good to play on 30 FPS in the battles, but sure, do what you need to do.
Bandai Namco does do these. We actually talked about this with Digimon. They do these kind of ports to Switch. Well, previously to Switch, and now to Switch 2. Kind of like most of the time, they feel like they're years late. In this case, it probably couldn't have been done on Switch at all. But they've done this before with like Switch titles or RPGs on Switch titles that come just several years afterwards. And we actually talked about it last year. Like eventually Digimon Time Stranger will come to Switch 2. It might take them 2 years. Or not.
Yeah, this is actually one of the things that caught me off guard, because they announced Digimon Story Time Stranger coming to Switch 2 just like a year later, maybe less than a year later, but we thought it was going to come way later than that. But
then, on this one, not even just Switch 2.
Yeah, it's coming to yeah. Wait, is it coming to? Yeah, it is coming to Switch 1. You're right. Yes. I forgot. But the funny part of it about this is they confirmed that they're gonna have like a performance and quality toggles. So one will target 30 FPS, the performance is gonna target 60 FPS, and that obviously that made a huge uproar from people watching this, because
that should have been on consoles at launch, because it was not like, it wasn't super easy, but you could hit like over 120 FPS on PC if you had the hardware for it, and you're not, and PS5 and Series X isn't that much weaker that you couldn't have gotten that like a performance like 60 FPS mode on those consoles if you really wanted.
I mean, you could do like 40 FPS on Steam Deck like without breaking a sweat, except for like one location. So like it
Yeah.
could have easily been done here. They just decided to ship it at 30 for whatever reason. So yeah, they are patching those versions.
Yeah, so the huge uproar was like the console versions of Time Stranger over 30 FPS capped, and that was it. And now see when they first unveiled this, it's like, wait a minute, why Switch the Switch version's gonna have this fucking toggle? And then they did confirm in a social media post. They should have probably they should probably do a better job like telling people, but yes, this performance and quality toggles will be coming to the console for the Xbox and PlayStation versions when it hits Switch on July 10th, I think, or is it like a later update? I forgot.
No, they just said that they're planning on updating. No time frame given.
Okay, so yeah, as James mentioned, this should have been there on day one because the PC version obviously supports 60 FPS and beyond on more arbitrary frame rates. Oh, Bandai Namco, what are you gonna do with you? You make the weirdest decisions sometimes.
The last couple headlines here, I believe these are both announced at the Nintendo Direct. Artist Summit demos that are available now. The Pragmata Sketchbook Demo is now available on console. It's the one that's been available on PC, and I've seen some people like on social media like really had a really good time with this. So if you haven't tried it yet on PC or you want to also try it on console, it's available now. And then Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection, obviously slated to come out next month, has a demo available on all consoles, and progress carries over to the main game. So there you go.
Demo's good, hey, more game devs offer demos, please. It's usually it hurts more than it helps more than it hurts.
Unless you're RGG Studio.
We don't talk about them, man. They generational fumble in these last 6 months for RGG Studio, man.
God, not even last 6 months, like last 3 months especially, it's been dire.
God.
I prefer not to speak.
If I speak, I'll be in great trouble.
The next headline here, I think I saw Josh and Adam talking about like whether should or shouldn't cover this. An announcement of a Culdcept game, Culdcept the First, but I don't know like where this came from. So
This is this is confusing because they announced 2 new Culdcept titles, and the Culdcept series has been more strategy than RPG, but I think it still fits within our scope. Where these are kind of like almost they use like board game aesthetics to progress through the games, where you have a deck and you use dice rolls like to go to move around, and you use like a card deck to engage in battles, do actions, and so forth. There's like a pretty niche series, but has like a very loyal following. So the first one that they announced is Culdcept the First, which is sort of like an updated release of the first Culdcept game, which released many years ago. This will be launching on July 30th for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC via Steam. And then they announced Culdcept Begins, which is a new entry in the Culdcept series, developed by Nioh. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with Nioh, but I believe they're the developers between Shinchan, Shiro, and the Cold Town. And this will release on Switch 2, Switch, and PC on July 16th. I guess the Switch 2 and Switch versions will launch on July 16th for Culdcept Begins, and then the PC version will follow after them sometime in 2026. So it's not like a simultaneous release. And this is just I don't know too much about this new release, but they showed off like a trailer for it, and the visuals and screenshots. They'll have like over 400 cards in them. We'll have creature cards, item cards, and spell cards. And as you traverse through the game, like in a strategy format, you can employ these cards to do actions on them. That's honestly pretty cool because the Culdcept release series, once again, it's like not the most like craziest, biggest fan base, and not the most well known internationally. But for the people who do know, It has a very loyal following, and it's just like kind of cool to see that they'll have like a remastered, updated release of the first game along with this new entry. With Culdcept the first being the updated release of the first game, and Culdcept begins being an all new entry. It's kind of, admittedly, it is a little bit confusing because of their titles and not and announcing these two side by side on the same day.
They're also doing a bundle which has one of them on Switch 2 and one of them on Switch 1 together. And I'm like, why would you not just do both on, like, why not just have a native Switch 2 thing? But apparently, like, different devs are handling, like you said, like, it was confusing because I saw posts from like one account saying, oh, this is coming out here, then the other account, and the logos are also similar. So I feel like it's kind of like not working out for them in terms of their synergy for the brand right now.
They could have done a better job announcing these too. But I mean, it's cool. Like, I'll definitely give these games a shot. Like, I think the Culdcept series, I played them, but I'm not the most ardent follower of the games. Like, I pick up them here and there and check them out.
I only played that 3DS thing, which was called Culdcept Revolt. I think NIS America did that. That's the only one I've played.
Yeah, I know a lot. That was a lot of people's exposure to Culdcept, and they seem to really like that 3DS version a lot.
And that I think covers everything that was like main announcements, mostly from the Nintendo Direct, plus a few like the Culdcept and the Digimon Time Stranger piece of news. So to kind of wrap up the podcast, we have a few more trailers and then a few sales updates, and then we'll look at it next week. So for the trailers, one of the big releases for next week, of course, is Yakuza Kiwami 3, a game that has been kind of into the discussion window for both good and ill. A trailer went up just talking about its PC features, including ultrawide support, uncapped frame rate, things like that. But of course, we'll be able to talk about it at length next week, hopefully. So I'm sure Mikhail will cover it extensively, as you always do. I'll skip to this one. A Fantasy Life got a update that just released like a day ago. The Primordial Dragon. So they released a trailer for this. The update is now live. I don't know if Josh or Mikhail, if you were planning on playing this. I'm just curious.
I might check it out. I don't know.
Or James too.
I want to, but absolutely no time for that right now. I'm
Yep.
still
I'll
chipping
get
away at
around to it
Inazuma
in-
slowly. But
Yeah. Well, I think Mikhail and I are of the same mind here, where it's like we didn't talk about it earlier, but we're both slowly chipping away at Mewgenics. We didn't have enough time to do like proper impressions yet. We'll get a review up. Either me or him, we'll get a review up. But it's like that game is fucking huge. That game is long.
Apparently that game's awesome, and yeah, like you said, that it's I
I
don't know
deserve-
much about
I
it
deserve the
except for
thing.
the name. Like, I don't really know much about it. I might.
I mean,
dive
I've been
into
like
it eventually.
joking about it never coming out because it was announced in 2012 and it just kept getting delayed and stuff. So like I was so confident it'll get delayed again that I counterpicked it in the fantasy league, and then like I think a week later we got sent code and I downloaded. I'm like, oh shit, it's real and it's good. Like this is like that Seinfeld gif. It's real and it's spectacular. But yeah, I'm suffering from that. And
I
James has
made
played
it-
more than me, but yeah.
I made a joke on Blue Sky yesterday where it's like, it's 2025, like the Dr. Manhattan joke. It's like, it's 2025. One of the best games of the year is a 200-hour tactical RPG. It's 2026, comma. Because Mewgenics, in the review guide, they straight up say, we expect people reaching the true end credits to take over 200 hours.
Oh, okay. It's only 200 hours. Not that bad.
It's good, though.
Good.
Maybe a few weeks from now, I'll be able to actually share longer impressions. It's like, goddamn. Ugh.
Two kind of longer, not trailers, but more like gameplay showcases. Crimson Desert got a second one, a features overview video focusing on combat. I did not watch this.
It looks pretty cool, man. I mean, it has a Zuna drop. You can do the Zuna drop. You can like, there's like grappling hooks that you can swing into bases. It's like it's less like the first one that they did of these is like, hey, here's what you do in the game itself outside of combat, and then obviously this one like like kind of delves into like the specifics of like, hey, if you want to like spec into like chain grappling wrestling moves into people, you can do so. I guess it's like one of those games where the very beginning of the game kind of gives you a taste of like, hey, here's what you can do in the game, but obviously something happens to this main character. He kind of loses a lot of like the it kind of does the Metroid Castlevania thing of like at the very beginning it kind of gives you a glimpse of like, hey, here's what you can do in the game. You're kind of have a lot of your abilities, and then something happens and you're locked off your abilities, and you have to kind of spec into them again as through game progression. It looks really cool. I want to play it for myself. I don't know what to expect. It's like it's impossibly scoped in my mind. It wants to do everything. I don't know if it'll like get it right, but it's showed me enough that I shouldn't skip this game. I guess that's the best way to put it.
That Eurogamer short video is absolutely worth watching if you haven't.
Yeah, so Eurogamer, they actually put up like a 10-minute like preview video of the game, but they also have like a jokey like kind of like fake commercial for it. Where it's like, all those open world games like Assassin's Creed and Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto. Well, you don't need all of that because all of those are in Crimson Desert. Now that's what I call
Hell
open
yeah.
world. That's a fun joke if you're from like the
That's
early
good.
2000s. Basically like greatest hits open world type game, which is not necessarily like a praise, but that just kind of, we've said like this game feels like it's trying to be the everything game, and this is a more jokey take on that.
Yeah.
One more port that was announced, not at the Nintendo Direct though, is that Dread Delusion, which is like a retro 3D PC game from 2024, is releasing on PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch this year, and they did a console announcement trailer.
I
Yeah, you played
reviewed
the PC
this.
version of this, right, James? Yeah.
Yeah, I reviewed the PC version. I thought it was pretty good. The combat is just there, but everything else pretty damn good. I'm excited for that tactical RPG they're working on.
Yeah.
Entropy.
It's, Entropy.
Couple sales updates. Slay the Princess, which is a kind of a fun story-driven visual novel sort of game, puzzle game kind of. It focuses entirely like on having many branching paths. Has surpassed 1 million copies across all platforms. And then Pokemon Legends ZA, as of the end of 2025, has sold 12.3 million copies.
Just only 12.3 million copies.
Yeah. Just a cool 12 million, without trying.
Pokemon IP, man.
Yep.
A threat to be reckoned with at all times.
And that covers all the news stories that I had highlighted for this week's episode of the Tetracast. So back to our old ways of hitting not quite 3 hours on the recording here. Yeah, looking ahead at next week, it looks like the big thing will be Kiwami 3. It'll be released by then. We'll see if we have our coverage ready for it.
Yeah, is anyone here planning on playing Kiwami 3? Is the question.
I mean, I
I'm
am
planning on
hopeful.
playing it,
I want to.
but yeah, I'm planning on playing it, but I'm not planning to like really indulge in it, if that makes sense. Like I want to see it so that I can comment on it, if that makes sense. Very, very dry, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm usually there day one with Yakuza games. For this one, I
you're
don't
not
know.
lying. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting for me because when I played 1 and 2, I played the Kiwami versions because I hadn't played the original. But in this case, I have played 3. So this is going to be the first one of their games where I've played the original to some degree because I know the remaster changed something, and I'm going to be playing the remake. So I'm interested to see how I find that. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have more to say on it next week. So look forward to that. You can follow RPG Site on all the social media channels. Just search for RPG Space Site. You should be able to find us. On the website, you see the 2 reviews that we talked about in terms of Dragon Quest VII Reimagined and Nioh 3 from Kite, as well as some of Mikhail's features, the interview with Dosa Divas dev, as well as the Shinra Archeology Cut programmers and their thoughts on Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VII modding, all that sorts of things. Follow us on Discord, discord.gg/RPG site. If you listen to this podcast on whatever podcast service of choice, leave us a like, leave us a rating. We'd like to see those. Until you hear from us next week, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you all next time.
The triple threat of Paranormasight, Granblue Relink, and another Eden.
Everything's coming up, Josh.
That's right. This is my
There
year.
you go.